back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler, here with Johnny, who is mad because the Lakers are losing to the Celtics.
Lost to the Celtics.
The Lakers
Tyler.
lost to the Celtics.
Yes, I'm fucking mad about it. Tyler, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to alienate our audiences. The Celtics and the Lakers are both polarizing franchises, but needless to say, that loss was bullshit. LeBron was fouled, and I'm fucking infuriated about it. And the Lakers keep losing on last-minute fouls, and the NBA last 2-minute report comes out, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess that was a foul, and we didn't call it. Oh, it sucks for you guys, and you lost in overtime. Burp.
I can't believe they keep not calling those fouls on LeBron just because he's a superstar, right?
It's because
I have no idea what I'm just saying words. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
He's too big and he's too strong, so his body doesn't fall over the place.
What?
And then
He's like an elderly man, isn't he? Playing with like a bunch of children. You're telling me they can't just like break his bones or something?
No, he's 38 years old and the
yeah,
Hulk.
like I said, an elderly man.
Yeah,
who has what 20 years of playing professional basketball? What the fuck?
Yeah, well,
how do you do that?
It's incredible, and people are just gonna be like, oh yeah, he doesn't get calls, and they're just gonna launch into these dumb arguments, and that's not what we're here to talk about. They're gonna be like, he flops, flop, and you're gonna be like, well, it's because he's so strong, if you punch him, he doesn't move, so he's gotta like, let the refs know that something happened, because they don't...
When you see someone have like a 10 or 15 professional wrestling career, Johnny, it's like, wow, they're really beating their bodies up, and it kind of shows. And they're not even doing like real fighting. They're doing performances that have wear and tear on their bodies and require athleticism, but it's not like they're competing at the absolute highest level, which LeBron James has been doing for longer than guys I see beat up in wrestling.
I don't know how to compare the two sports accurately.
He's a monster. I know, that's a weird comparison. I'm just thinking about it because tonight is the Royal Rumble, Johnny.
Yeah, and tomorrow is Royal Rumble 2.
Fuck the WWE, fuck everything about pro wrestling. I'm purely living on clips, and I'm not even following wrestling. So if a clip gets to me, then like it's some really cool shit. And the really cool shit from the Royal Rumble was Ricochet and fucking Logan Paul launched at each other from opposite sides of the ring's top rope and collided in midair. And say what you want. I mean, Logan Paul is a huge asshole. And that's what makes him the perfect wrestling heel. And a big problem I have with the last time I was really into wrestling, I like all the heels. I like bad guys. But I fucking hate Logan Paul. And he's entertaining to watch. Every time I've seen Logan Paul do something in WWE, for those who don't know, he like shows up at random WWE events. He's main evented pay-per-views before. It's fucking entertaining. He has the bad guy charisma, and he's legitimately a bad guy. And like, I kind of like that in my entertainment.
I guess if you are going to sign someone up to draw people to hate him or rally around the fact that people hate him, I guess you couldn't pick worse or better than Logan Paul, depending on what your scale looks like.
And I think he brings in maybe a younger audience to like an old man entertainment product. Like what kids watch wrestling if it's not like their weird dad who got them into wrestling?
I have no idea. You know, I'm so far removed from wrestling now.
I know. Yeah, you got invited to the Royal Rumble. Don't tell me you didn't get invited to someone watching the Royal Rumble.
I did. I have an invite, and yeah, I could have been there over tonight watching it. And instead, it was like, look, it's Lakers Celtics, and it's the start of a very important road trip, and it's already got fucked. And now tomorrow it's 49ers and Eagles. So more East versus West bullshit clashes. But this one's for some big marbles, because that game decides which one of those teams goes to the Super Bowl.
Ooh, well, they didn't get a Sega Genesis game based on their rivalries, so...
Yep, so fuck all this. No one cares about this, and it's going to be outdated by the time people listen, so...
Yeah, it's only going to be a week from now. That. We've only been bullshitting for like 5 minutes, though, so how about that Last of Us TV show, Johnny?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know, it's all right. I think it's... I think Peaceful on the Discord put it exactly how I feel. Like, the production design... Everything about how it looks, sounds, how it's acted is all amazing. And the story is exactly The Last of Us with some added bullshit. It's a video game story. The most interesting part of the show is how ridiculously faithful to the video game it is. because the story of The Last of Us is set up in such a way to pull you through a video game. It's constantly like, whoa, something happened. We have to get to the next point we have to walk to. Whoa, something happened over here. Now all the main characters that are gathered here, we have a reason to go over there. And that's how Naughty Dog sets up a lot of the story in their games, at least like the middle part. Like the overarching thing is one thing, and then like the day-to-day beats are, we got to get over there, time to walk our characters over there and shoot zombies. And like the characters are walking over the wooden boards between buildings, and there's a scene where they just trudge through the water of the hotel lobby. And that's a thing that happens in The Last of Us. That's just like, here's this cool environment we set up to show you what the world of The Last of Us is. And it becomes a scene in the show. It's like, it's so video gamey that I think it's remarkable. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's Game of Thrones necessarily.
So the question is this for me, to people who have not played the game and don't recognize those moments or haven't played the game like me, like 10 times. It's like, yeah, that hotel scene was great. It was not in the right order, but yeah, who cares? They showed the scene and it was interesting and cool. People not watching it, do they feel like, oh, this is video gamey? And I'm not talking about people who play video games. I'm talking about people who just like watch TV. Are they like watching this going like, oh yeah, I'm sure this is what video games feel like? Or are they going like, oh, cool?
I think I'm biased as someone who's played The Last of Us, but like the most ridiculous moment, spoilers for a video game that came out 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
And a TV series that just came out weeks ago.
They get to the top of the museum, they walk into the boss room, and then like the ceiling and bookcase falls down and blocks the door behind them. And it's just like such a, oh shit, we walked into the boss room, time to fight some clickers moment. It's like exactly what would happen in a video game. It is so funny.
That is exactly what happens in the game.
Yeah.
Tess and Ellie are going through and they get separated because there's a small cave-in.
And then the other fucking thing, when Joel gives Tess a boost up onto some rocks so she can walk around to open a door, and in the 5 minutes it takes for her to like navigate somewhere else to walk a door, there's like a cutscene moment between Joel and Ellie. It's a video game. It's the craziest thing. I don't necessarily think that's bad. I think it's interesting. I think it's something a lot of video game adaptations do not do. They are not like this faithful to how video gamey it is. Maybe quote unquote regular watchers don't pick up on that because they're not familiar with the video game or even video game design, but I'm definitely feeling a lot of it.
So one of the creators of the game, Neil Druckmann, like, you know, the driving force behind it, is a director and a creative consultant and writer on the show. And he actually directed episode 2. So. Okay.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. There are obviously changes. One of the big changes is that, I mean, there's no spoilers. If you're watching the show, you're watching the show. Joel is kind of a psychopath in The Last of Us, but in the video games, because it's a video game, you have to murder a lot of people just because the genre is third-person shooter. And like, there are scenes where Joel literally just has to murder a bunch of dudes that have been taken out of the TV show because it would probably just make him seem like a maniac.
Yeah. What's your body count at now, Joel? And they don't mean sex partners. They mean an actual body count nearing the hundreds.
Exactly. And I'm wondering how much that's going to continue in the show, just because like in real life, people don't kill 200 people in an episode of their lives.
Well, I mean, you already saw some of that changing, right? Where clickers became the enemy rather than humans in episode 2. Well, that would have been like, or a mob of zombies.
That is true. Yeah. But let me tell you something about The Last of Us.
For all the people are like, they're not zombies. It's like, whatever. Sure, they're the infected. It's a representation of the mindless human and the terror that is when you've lost control. Let's move on from the semantic arguments.
Johnny, I know that they replaced the humans with the zombies in that episode of The Last of Us for that scene where they get rushed in that building. I'm going to tell you a little spoiler about the zombie genre, Johnny. Humans are the real enemies.
Oh, wow. This is an idea I've never visited before.
Yeah, I mean, zombies movies it's like one of the most important genres in horror. I would have thought you would have known that as a horror fan.
No, I've never heard it before. That's a unique idea to me.
I mean, there's some pretty influential movies in there, like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead too. Another great movie.
Oh, never. What are these movies you're mentioning?
What are you not? Why are we not transitioning? Why are we not? You're like not. Usually, you pick up what I put down, or complain that I don't pick up what you put down. You're leaving me out to dry here.
I am a little bit. I'm so fucking surly tonight.
Oh my!
I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm being a bad host. It's not even your fault. I'm not even mad at you. You've done nothing wrong. Anyways, historically, Tyler, it's important to know the context of what came before, like what inspired The Last of Us, and like how important were those things. And that's going to be the focus of our episode. We're talking all about games that were important to The Last of Us, because we're going to really capitalize on popular, look, The Last of Us is very popular and important, so we got to have an episode about it, right? That's what we're doing?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
it's not.
I'll switch, whatever.
You're like, a new episode. No, we're not doing that. Hey, someone presented to us the idea. Do you have their name? Because I forgot.
Oh my God,
my brain is a wash of rage.
In our Discord, wasn't it?
Yes, it
a lot of episodes get recommended, and we kind of put them on a list and then end up not doing them. But we do have a big backlog. Here, I'll go find who recommended this episode. It was Kanakis. So,
okay.
Thanks, Kanakis. We're doing it.
Okay. Yeah, this episode recommended to us by Kanakis. So, yeah. I mean, a little bit of tailoring. I think he asked for the 30 most important games or influential games of all time. And that is a super big question. And actually, I think if we would have done 30, we limited ours to 10. If we would have done 30, I would feel more comfortable right now. Because 10, I don't feel like I don't feel like I have enough wiggle room in between this. And I also feel deeply out of context, because historically, the most important, video game, we talk about it, but video games are a very big genre, and I have a lot of blind spots. You have blind spots. It's so big that everyone has blind spots. So, even as someone who feels like pretty comfortable with the history of video games, man, I'm missing a lot of the most important computer stuff. What do I know about that?
I mean, Johnny, it's not a genre, it's a medium, and I think it is one of the hardest mediums to even get a base level understanding of everything that's out there. Even before we started this episode, I went on one of my tirades of what the fuck is a MOBA? Why are MOBAs so popular? One of the most popular genres of all times in terms of player count when you look at games like League of Legends and Dota 2, huge multi-million-dollar tournaments for those games. I have no concept of what a MOBA is, the evolution of the MOBA genre, the actual mechanical differences between MOBAs. Fuck MOBAs. And that's a huge part of video games. Johnny, one of the games that I'm just going to guess did not make either of our lists, as if I don't have your list, I think it's somewhere on our docs, but Fortnite. To know what Fortnite is, you don't just have to have played Fortnite. Fortnite is a game that has evolved over the past, 10 years or whatever. Fortnite started as one thing, has ended up somewhere else, and you can't just read a Wikipedia article or have played a little bit of Fortnite to understand everything it is. And if you're a person who has deeply invested themselves in Fortnite and everything that Fortnite is, do you know everything about fucking Ultima? Do you know everything about Halo? Do you know everything about Diablo? Do you know everything about 1970s and arcade games? There is a way to know a lot about music and movies, even at just a base level, but you just can't play every video game. There's just way, way too much.
No, and I think video games, more so than movies, are a lot more secular, meaning that if you are devoted, not God, but if you are devoted to that, if you are devoted to that game, you're going to stay in that little silo, right? You're going to stay in that. You might only be playing Fortnite. A lot of these games, people who are playing, WoW or EverQuest or whatever the game is, massive multiplayer online game, that is their thing. They might consider themselves hardcore gamers and have only played one game for hundreds or thousands of hours, which, so when people try to encapsulate so all of these lists, if you go look at other lists, if you go Google this, there's going to be a bunch of answers for you, but everybody's going to have so many biases, and a lot of these lists are terrible because they don't even tell you what their criteria are. So it's just like it stresses me out talking about this a little bit because I just feel like we could be 100% wrong, 100% right, and there would be no way for anyone to really confirm. And we would still, even if there was some grading system where they were like, yeah, you got all this wrong, everyone would disagree with everything we said or like half of it.
I mean, that's why limiting it to top 10 is kind of okay, because it makes it very obvious that you're going to miss stuff. When you look at, like, sometimes when you search for, like, most influential games, most important games, you find, like, these top 100 lists. And when you get to 100 and you're missing, like, sometimes if you're, like, missing a certain game, I don't know, I'm going to throw out Farmville. And we're only talking about games you can collect. This is Collector's Quest. In my opinion, like, Farmville really, really launched us into this whole, like, multiple currency, mobile, shitty little clicker games that forces you to do mundane tasks, shitty mundane tasks every day. It's the foundation of, like, the shitty mobile game genre. The most important gaming platform that has ever been created is Android in terms of number of players. And Farmville, it was started as a Facebook game, but led into that. If you're going to make a top 100 games, fuck you if you don't have Farmville. And, like, half the lists won't have Farmville, obviously.
You've got these people who would never consider that even a game. Like all the cookie clicker games that are out there, just like, how do you deal with these games? And there's so many games that aren't even games. And so many people just look at mobile games as if they don't actually exist, which is not correct. And then a lot of people who are just like, console people who are like, oh, computer games don't exist. And then you've got the PC people who are just like, oh, you mean PC Master Race? Get the fuck out of here. Why would those aren't even games. And if they are, they're just based on something a PC did. So you can't talk to them either. These lists are impossible.
The craziest part about mobile games, exactly what you said is correct, that too many people don't consider mobile games games. For the most part, I think mobile games are not good. Which is something that most people would agree with, but they're very obviously like the biggest sector of video games and kind of the biggest game of all time. I think if it's not Minecraft, it's Honor of Kings. And I think you could ask most people what that is and they wouldn't even fucking know because it's a mobile game. It's a Chinese fucking MOBA. What the fuck is a MOBA? It's made like $14 billion. I don't even know what a MOBA is.
Well, it's a multiplayer online battle arena game. Clearly, Tyler. So you may know games like Dota 2 or
why would I want to
Heroes
play a
of the
game
Storm.
on a team? I'm just going to be mad at the people on my team when they inevitably fuck up, or I'm going to be the one who fucks up.
It's weird because in the top 10 rankings, Honor of Kings doesn't even make the top 10.
Of what?
Of people saying if it's good or not for MOBAs.
I mean, obviously, because I think you can only play it in China.
You mean there's a lot of people there? Okay.
Johnny, as of November 2020, over 100 million monthly active players.
That's insane.
And people don't even, they're like, I don't know shit about Honor of Kings. It's just like, if this was a PC game or like a console game, I feel like people would at least maybe know it exists, but no one even has the inkling. Anyway, we're not even talking about mobile games because I think like maybe like one game made our list that would be that. But we're just saying a lot of different criteria could go into what is actually the most influential, what is actually the most important games.
Well, and that's something I want to talk about too, because even with our list, like, we made our list independently. We didn't say like, okay, let's sit down and hammer out this list. We said, okay, you make your list, I'll make my list. But we may not even be using the same criteria. What might be influential or important to me, and that skews my whole list, is not the same thing that's happening on Tyler's list. Like, we didn't sit down and agree to any criteria.
Yep. All right. So let's start. Want to get into it here?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about just the ones we agree on first.
Yeah. All right, we agree on 3 games in our list. Johnny, let's start with where it all began. The first video game of all time. How could we not start it with the first video game of all time, Johnny? Pong.
Oh.
From 1973.
That game doesn't exist on a computer mainframe. That's not the first of all time.
Pong is the first video game of all time. Forget about Space War. Forget about Tennis for Two. Computer Space. All of those.
I mean, I would really like to talk about Space War, but...
You ever play Space War?
No, because I don't have I don't have a mainframe in which to. Yes, I agree. Pong.
Why Pong, Johnny?
Why Pong? Well, Tyler, it brought video games into the home. That's it. Like it was it's that's a very important step. Sure, you could point out that that's not the first Pong or anything like that, but like you get a Telegames Pong system in your house, suddenly you're playing video games in the house, and that's setting a precedent for the rest of gaming to come.
I think that's only like half of it. Like that's half
Sure.
of why Pong is like so ridiculously important is the popularity of playing Pong at home. And then the other half is like it launched the video game industry. And I want to say computer space, but it's fucking not computer space. It's Pong. Pong was obviously much more popular than computer space. So it is maybe not the literal first game that launched the video game industry, but it is essentially the game that launched the video game industry, the thing that we all love. And because like video games before Pong, largely like weird nerds in college computer labs playing like weird games over networks, not doing it for profit. And you know what? Making video games for profit is the reason we have all the video games that we love.
And that's what I'm saying. Pong got it into households. That's what I mean. Like, that's why Pong is important. There's other things that could have been made, but this is the one that latched on. This is the one that landed, and people said, "Oh yeah, video games are a thing I could see myself doing."
Yeah, the thing I could do. So
I mean, do as in play, do as in make, do as in be profitable. Like the thing I do, that's a very wide sweeping statement.
It's a total, it's a Magnavox Odyssey ripoff, though. I mean, come on. Alcorn, you totally ripped off Odyssey. Odyssey came before Pong, just to be clear on the timelines here. So Pong was not literally the first home video game, but no, it was the first popular home video game.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I mean, I wanted to be more Tylery and more nitpicky in this list, but like, if I'm narrowing it down to 10, basically everything on my list, it has to be somewhat popular, I think, to make the top 10.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that speaks to like how we've kind of crafted our list. Influence over the masses is like a key component of how we made our choices.
Maybe more for you than me. I mean, it's I think our top hundreds might greatly differ, but yeah, our top 10s
a little
bit more in line.
For the top 10. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely things. Look, there was a lot of games that we talked about, and Tyler can confirm. I pulled my hair out a lot, fretting over like just nitpicking over stuff and still feeling like even my nitpicks weren't correct. So here we go.
So John,
what else you got?
The first Pong you can get is a Pong arcade cabinet, which comes in this, which is amazing because it's so distinctive. It comes in a wooden cabinet with a yellow bezel, and it says Pong, looks great. And it just has like a TV sitting there behind the glass.
Super ugly.
It is super ugly.
It is so ugly.
It's kind of small. It's smaller than what you would think of as like an arcade cabinet. I know of a couple of people who have them, so it doesn't seem like it's literally impossible to get one, but they are expensive and probably only more expensive in the past few years since COVID. Because I know arcade and pinball stuff was really popular in COVID, and I know when prices go up like that, they do not come down as quickly. Even though we are in sort of a bear market for games. I don't know what a Pong arcade cabinet costs. If you're more reasonable, though, you can get Sears Telegames Pong, which was the first home release of Pong by Atari. Man, I just don't like Sears stuff. I know I'm biased. I do want one of these, by the way. I'm really sad that I missed the one that was at Portland. Something about Sears does not appeal to me, and I think it just might be that I'm like 33 years old. Because when I think of Sears, like I think of it as like the dying department store in the corner of the mall. And every time I went to Sears, I'm like, I don't want to be in Sears. What would I go to a Sears for?
Am I buying some Craftsman tools?
Like, yeah, is it like, okay, here's like some tools. Here's like a small clothing section. Like where am I? What did I come here for? What does this place specialize in?
Came here for black box Atari games.
Of course, that's it. So Telegames Pong is the first one. It's got like a kind of grid pattern on the box. I think it's kind of ugly. After that came out, Atari released their own version, Atari Pong. And that has a sort of yellow, orange, and brown wipe going across the Pong letters. It's kind of the classic Pong logo that you would see today when they do all their Pong remake stuff. Like they made like a new Pong arcade game. I'm sure like all those new Atari home computer things have like some version of Pong. This is the logo they would use on that. So I think the later released Pong is more appealing, but it's not the first. And either of them, they come in the same type of box. The cardboard used for the box is just absolute garbage. Finding either of these in any kind of reasonable condition, like no broken flaps, the top not like literally torn and falling off, is pretty hard. So if you could find any Pong in good condition, it's probably worth hundreds of dollars. Maybe cheaper for like beat up ones, because you could find beat up ones, but like to find a really nice one, they go for a pretty big premium. And because of that conditional range, I don't think there's like a good price I could put on this, but I would expect to pay at least maybe $100 or $200 for like a nice or even a decent complete in box Pong.
And how many did you buy in order to get a nice one?
One or two. I think I bought like one, and then I maybe bought another one to like get like an insert I was missing. Okay. But I only have the Atari one. I don't have the Telegames one. Hit me up if you have a Telegames Pong. You know I want it.
I do know that. All right. So we agree on Pong. Cool. We agree also on this game, Tyler. You've probably never heard of it, but even though it's on your list, Donkey Kong.
Oh, Donkey Kong. What did that game do?
Oh, nothing. It's not responsible for anything, Tyler. It definitely didn't save Nintendo's bacon at all. It definitely didn't like reinvigorate arcades. It definitely isn't, one of the most, if not most important platformer of all times. Definitely didn't create a bunch of genres that have carried through. None of that stuff.
Actually,
there was a story.
There's this game called
If you're going to say, well, actually, I would appreciate if you said, instead, actually, and then pushed up your glasses.
There's this game called Steeplechase from the mid-'70s, Johnny. It's a horse racing simulator. And you could actually jump your horse in that one. There was a button to jump your horse. I think that's one of the first side-scrolling games that has platforming. I think that might be the first side-scrolling game with platforming. What gives? Why, that sounds more important than Donkey Kong to me.
Oh, no.
A horse racing game that no one, including me, has ever heard of.
Right. Well, because Donkey Kong, again, that whole thing, it launched a craze. It brought about more game. Like I said, it saved Nintendo. Everyone wanted to play Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong became a quarter eater. You're like, oh my God, platformers. And then people just started copying that. And it got ported to Atari and Nintendo. Like, it's still being ported to this day, which is insane, actually, that people just still port the original version of this game across. Well, not the original. Usually it's like a bad NES port they're like dropping. But yeah, Donkey Kong forever, everywhere. And it's like hard for me to talk about because how much I dislike primates. So Donkey Kong is hard for me, but it also stars some dude named Mario. And yeah, you can start being like, oh, actually, you're a Jumpman. I don't care. It's Mario.
He is not Jumpman. He is Mario. He was referred to as Jumpman, which was quickly changed to Mario. And that's in the manual. It's in the advertising. Wherever you found this as Jumpman, he was also Mario in Donkey Kong.
Boom. Shut up, nerds. All right. Anyways, Mario might be important, and though I know that's not the most influential Mario game, it's just important to mention.
I think there's an argument for it. There's a reason it's on both of our lists. It's like it's the first platformer where you can jump, and there are like the 80s and 90s were defined by platformers, and there are genres that are also very important. Like RPGs are very important. First-person shooters are very important. When the Nintendo 64 launched, they were like, here's Super Mario 64. It's a fucking 3D platformer because this is the shit that's going to blow your minds because we know this is the genre. And then what did everyone do? They copied Super Mario fucking 64. And all of those games have their through line back to Donkey Kong.
And Well, and Donkey Kong also gave you like something very important. Right before Donkey Kong starts, it gives you like this cutscene. You see Donkey Kong stealing Pauline, climb up to the top of the rafters, and now you have a story. You know what's going on. And even though it's barely narrative, it's narrative introduced at the start of the game, which wasn't really being done before that.
100%. I don't, if you like Google like first narrative in a video game, like Donkey Kong will come up. I doubt that is literally true. There are definitely games that had stories before Donkey Kong. The interesting part of Donkey Kong is like you start at the bottom, you get to the top, and then Donkey Kong takes Pauline to the next level. And there is an element to you actually playing the story. Like when you get to the top, that's when Donkey Kong takes Pauline up to the next floor. It's not just that, the story of the game is that, I have to go rescue Pauline. You like kind of see it happen, and your goal is to get there. It's an important part in narrative and games. It's crazy that it has that element on top of being like the first major game where you can fucking jump and be the first appearance of Mario. It is unbelievable how many important things Donkey Kong has going for it. And it fucking saved Nintendo, or maybe it saved Nintendo of America. I don't know. Either way, Donkey Kong clearly has to be on this list. And you mentioned the shitty NES port. I'm just going to say, fuck every version of Donkey Kong. There's no good version of Donkey Kong to collect. Fuck the Nintendo version. The Nintendo version has 3 levels, I think. The Atari version has 2 levels. I think ColecoVision has 3 levels. Like, the ports are fucking garbage. I think it was the first home port, the Game & Watch. The Game & Watch has 1 level. I don't even know what was the first way you could play Donkey Kong at home with every level. I bet it was some computer version that no one gives a shit about because Donkey Kong was ported to everything. But seriously, fuck all the ports. I don't care what the technical first version of Donkey Kong is. It doesn't fucking matter. Get a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet. This game is that important. If you have one arcade cabinet just to have as a collectible, just as like, oh shit, here's the thing, it's Donkey Kong. And I think most people wouldn't have like a Pac-Man or a Space Invaders beyond just like, oh, it's like kind of the cool 80s factor. But Donkey Kong's a fucking Nintendo cabinet. It's got this iconic shape. It's got iconic colors. It's got iconic characters. It's the perfect arcade cabinet to put in your collection that's otherwise full of Nintendo and GameCube games. I realize most people aren't going to buy an entire arcade cabinet no matter what. I mean, I don't have a Donkey Kong
until Nintendo
cabinet.
Starts doing like, those 1-up arcade versions.
It's the fucking game. Fuck 1-up arcade. That doesn't count either.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
We've talked about it on the show. There are 4 major revisions of Donkey Kong PCBs. We're going to really get into it a little bit here. Okay. The first revision was only released in Japan. If you look at the part numbers on the board, you will usually see the part number, and it'll be nothing, or it'll be -2, -3, or -4. The -3 and -4 were for the cocktail cabinets that came out later. They are much more common. The earlier PCB stacks have 4 individual PCBs. The later ones only have 2 PCBs because they simplified the hardware. But the interesting ones are the first ones that only came out in Japan, and then the TKG2 ones, the ones with a 2 after the part number on the boards. Those were the ones that were originally radar scope PCBs, and they modified the hardware to turn them into Donkey Kong. Because the story of Donkey Kong is basically, they had all these copies of radar scope that they couldn't sell, and they're like, hey, Shigeru Miyamoto, make us a game that people will actually fucking buy. And he did, and these are the PCBs that are like, the reason the gaming world exists as it does today. I have a first release Donkey Kong PCB, but man, one of those radar scope ones would be so fucking cool. They are very rare, desirable, and expensive. I have no idea how much they cost. I think there's only 2,000 of them. But like that, in terms of like arcade hardware, like arcade shit got thrown out, especially early 80s arcade shit. When that shit stopped making money, you just threw it in the fucking dumpster. You didn't sell it to collectors for like whatever pittance you could get. So like, who knows how many TKG2 Donkey Kongs there are. Additionally, those TKG2s, because they were originally radar scope games, they have a red cabinet instead of a blue cabinet. A lot of people
Ooh.
repaint those because they think it's cooler to have the red one. I don't know. I think you could tell if you have an original based on like the plate on the back. There's a serial number. And there's something you could tell there. There's like a website that goes over all these differences. But I mean, it's Donkey Kong. It's one of the coolest things you can own. I don't own one. I'm never going to own one. But man, Johnny, all of our listeners should go buy Donkey Kong cabinet.
I agree. Got a lot to say about that. And one last note about Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is a series that survived. Donkey Kong is now a major franchise player all through Nintendo products, not just this like one and done nonsense. Like DK is a major character and, still going strong to this day.
So, I mean, there's nothing, you can't argue Donkey Kong off the list to me, but like, is he even a major character anymore? Like, what's the last Donkey Kong game?
There was, probably Donkey Kong Freeze, right?
Yeah, it's fucking Retro Studios. It's Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and they didn't even make another one for the Switch. The Switch is like the most popular Nintendo thing in, fucking 20 years? And there's not even a new Donkey Kong game on it. They just re-released Retro Studios game.
Yeah, he's in other series too, so, Donkey Kong's still around. Well, they're gonna make another Donkey Kong. He's still one of the pillars of Nintendo.
I almost disagree that he's a pillar at this point. He feels like a side character. Like, he's basically like Toad, according to Nintendo, which is nuts considering how important the first game is. And even like Donkey Kong Country. Johnny, is it because they gave so many of their major Donkey Kong games to third parties? Nintendo hates like their third party characters. Like Waluigi is a Camelot software planning character, and they will not put Waluigi in Smash. And when you think of Donkey Kong, yes, you think of Donkey Kong, but then you think of Donkey Kong Country. That's a Rare game. And then the Donkey Kong Country Returns games are Retro Studio games. Have they just like, because they're these other companies making this, they think of Donkey Kong as like a B-list character now?
Donkey Kong is in the movie.
Oh, whatever. I mean, all right. Anyway.
Too big a point. Move on. All right, gotcha.
What did we have before Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze? And I love those games.
Donkey Kong.
I'm looking at Wikipedia. DK Jungle Climber, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, DK King of Swing. I played that when I had COVID. There's a reason that game is $7 sealed. That game sucks. The three Donkey Kong Konga games.
Donkey Kong versus Mario.
The March of the Mini. That one doesn't even count. That's a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. Separate series. That's not the Donkey Kong series.
Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong versus Mario.
Remember, you know what the first game in that series is? It's fucking Donkey Kong on Game Boy, and that game's a fucking masterpiece.
Donkey Kong. The original Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong versus Mario. You can't eliminate things just because you don't like the point. Get out of here.
What nonsense? No, Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a very specific kind of game.
So what would you describe the gameplay of Donkey Kong as? Please tell me.
Oh my god, Wikipedia doesn't even consider Donkey Kong from 1994 the first Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. They consider it Mario vs. Donkey Kong. There's no way. It's definitely based on the Game Boy game. They put it in the history of the series. Fuck off. Donkey Kong is the first Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. Anyway, Johnny, we're getting off base, and you're trying to make arguments that
we got a lot. We got a lot of games. We got a lot of games to get through. Let's
stop trying to argue against my point. Nintendo doesn't care about Donkey Kong anymore, and my point's correct because I made it.
Except for the movie, which is in. Okay, go on.
Highest grossing movie of all time. It's gonna be it. Count on it.
I don't know about that. We'll see.
Johnny, Super Mario Brothers. Did anyone think this was going to make the list?
Is that game important? Should we talk about that directly after Donkey Kong? I wonder why.
Yeah, all the same reasons for Donkey Kong. Platformers are an incredibly important genre. Super Mario Brothers, not the first platformer, not the first side-scrolling platformer, but the game that made the Nintendo Entertainment System a breakout success. And the Nintendo Entertainment System, probably the most important video game console of all time, I think.
It saved video games from a much longer hike to popularity after the video game crash. So yeah, the Nintendo very important, and there's no Nintendo without Mario. So yeah, when you say Mario, you might as well just be saying Nintendo.
Yeah. I honestly don't think we need to harp on how important Super Mario Brothers is. No. If there's a game that is universally on every most important game list, it's probably Super Mario Brothers.
Though I did see it in like the top 20 of a few lists, and it was just like, you fucking
fuck off. Man, all these lists.
You're so edgy. You're so edgy. Cool, you did.
Yeah. It. Also, we're not putting this in any order.
No, not at all.
But like Super Mario Brothers would be in the top 5, like, easily. And some people are like, the most important game ever, it's Space War, because it's the first video game. Like, come fucking on. That's like saying the most important photo ever taken was this first blurry piece of shit that someone made the first camera with. Like, come on.
What's the other one that guy tried to argue? Mud? Multi-unit dungeon or whatever?
Multi-user dungeon.
Yeah, multi-user dungeon. Yeah. Get out of here. Stop being up your own ass. God damn it.
Johnny, the most important YouTube video, it was the one, the first YouTube video ever made, of course, which is like some guy's visit to the San Diego Zoo.
Oh, yeah, great. I think that one where the guy puts on all the shirts is more important than that one.
Sure. Super Mario Brothers, Johnny, I don't even think we need to talk about variants just because it is Super Mario Brothers.
Hang tab, matte, gloss sticker seals. Yeah, they're there. I hope you have one sealed.
Super Mario Brothers was released on the Famicom in 1985. The first release does not have a barcode on the back. The second, and by far the most common release, has a barcode on the back. And later releases have a little Famicom FF logo on the front of the box. In America, the first release Super Mario Brothers has a cardboard hang tab, meaning there's a little piece cut out of the back of the box for you to hang it on a peg, which I've never seen any store ever actually use, so you want to find those unpunched. Matte sticker means that instead of having shrink wrapped, it was sealed with a little circular sticker on the top of the box. That sticker has a matte finish instead of a gloss finish, and because video game collectors are fucking nuts, that's really, really important.
See arguments about the narcissism of minor differences.
Yes. Go on. I mean, the black box, at this point, black box NES games have been studied more than anything else. I can go into 100 other differences between the Mario things. The main thing you need to know is having a hang tab version of the NES one, I think, makes it a lot cooler. There's all these minor differences. I think having a matte sticker is important. Having a gloss sticker, kind of important. People like the stickers now. But other than that, fuck every other revision of Super Mario Brothers. It's basically whether you have a hang tab or not. Not to diminish having any copy of Super Mario Brothers. I think having a copy of Super Mario Brothers is a pretty cool thing to have. And I think having a hang tab makes it that much cooler.
Yeah, and if you get into the white oval seal, you've reached the worst level of having still a really good thing. So don't feel too bad.
So the weird thing about Oval Seal Super Mario Brothers, it's like one of the rarer versions, not sealed. It is the most common one sealed, but like you don't see the Oval Seal ones complete in boxes often.
We've talked about this. I don't think we've talked about it for a long time, but people really obsess about the first print, but the first print a lot of times is the biggest print for the game, so it'll be the most common. And when you start talking about the last print of a game, you're like, that's the one where they just did like one final run and they didn't do that many. So like that's actually the rarest version of the game. But all the player's choice versions probably have a much smaller print run than first prints, but people are obsessed. They're obsessed with first prints.
Oh, absolutely. As a general rule, like the late prints will be the rarer ones. Absolutely.
Yeah, but people will always be like, this is the rare first print. They love to put those words together. And I'm just like, actually, if you want to get, but I don't do that because it's a losing argument and who cares? But yeah.
I mean, Super Mario Brothers is a special case because it was only launched in a couple cities to begin with in September 1985. But like when you look at an Xbox 360 game and it's like, oh, it's the first print of Fallout 3, and you like go on eBay, it's like, oh, most prints are the first print? All right.
Yeah, because it's rare.
It's rare. All right, Super Mario Brothers, Johnny, let's differ. What's your
okay.
you do do one from your list now.
All right.
Oh, I didn't go over prices. I mean, it's impossible. It is impossible to give a price for Super Mario Brothers. I probably $100 to $300 will get you one.
I have 150. I have 150 to 250 as my price range on that.
The last matte one on Heritage Auctions was a 6.5 that went for $3,600. It wasn't super nice, but the nice ones go for like $10,000 or more now. So, and for a variant that like a dozen people genuinely cared about 4 years ago.
Okay, so I'm gonna just jump us ahead a little bit. Like we're not doing this in any particular order, and I'm going to tell you that WoW, World of Warcraft,
wow,
one of the most important games. And yes, I hear all of you EverQuest people. I hear you. I don't even disagree with you necessarily. Tyler and I had a fight about this earlier, and Tyler, you can still fight me. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. The only reason I'm giving it over to WoW is because of the insane amount of users that WoW got and all the news attention and all the lives it very openly ruined when the news learned that it was ruining people's lives. They're like, oh, cool coverage. Let's get some sound bites for this so we can, talk about the horrors of video gaming in a new way. But it also, and yes, sure, EverQuest did that too, and there's probably some smaller stories there, but there was huge stories about what WoW did to people. People are still playing it. The subscription base was insane. All the revisions it's had, so much content. It's still going today. It is so popular that it got like so big. They were like, oh, do you want us to release the original version of WoW again so you can play that? And people were like, yes, we will pay you more money for that. That is insane.
It has its own card game. It has its own card game spin-off called Hearthstone, and that's like another one of the most popular mobile games there ever was.
Could be argued that it is one of the most important games. WoW is it's a juggernaut amongst juggernauts, and I don't know how it's so big to even talk about. It's a massively multiplayer online game that people drop their lives into. And when I was talking about those silos that people do, and that's like, they will call themselves hardcore gamers that will buy a special chair. They will have a blinged out keyboard. They will have a water cooled system that flashes different lights at you. They'll have a ticker that sends messages. They've got special controls all over. It looks like they are like air traffic controllers, not video game players. They've done this for a while, and it's not actually that complicated of a game. I'm not saying there are definitely games that have more complexity. Like one of the beauties of WoW is that anyone can get sucked into it. Even people who didn't play video games or only were very casually. It just grabbed them and drug them in. And, if you find one, they'll start talking to you about, their clan and all. And you're like, whoa, are you horde? Or like, I don't even want to engage in these conversations because people form really strong opinions about what you did in the game. Like what creature build. Like, everyone should know about WoW. I feel like I'm talking about Super Mario. Like, what do you want to know about WoW that you don't already know by just thinking about it for 5 seconds? Here's something. The collector's edition is very popular still. They do collector's editions for all of the releases of it. And the first one, vanilla, is how you'll search for that one. It's like $300 to $500, but sealed ones, there was a sealed one that sold for $7,000, which is crazy. A signed one that sold for like $5,000. So yeah, if you want to get WoW, you can, even though it's an MMO, you can collect it. So you can go get a box and, first prints, they're out there. If you know what to look for, there are first prints of the smaller PC box versions, and I believe it says something about Windows 98 in that content. We won't.
I think on the side of the spine of World of Warcraft boxes, it's in the system specs. It'll have Windows 98 on the first prints, or at least early prints. I don't know the first print.
WoW came out in 2004, just for some reference. Yeah. So we're about to hit next year's going to be a crazy year because we're going to start talking about the 20th anniversary of WoW.
Going into the collector's editions, even just going back to how important it is, like World of Warcraft is the first game. Like I'm younger than you, Johnny, so I've when in 2004, I was in a group of people who did not have money. And it's the first game I knew like multiple people that were paying money monthly to play. The concept of paying $15 a month to play a video game was for insane. Crazy people. Like $15 could get me multiple shitty games at GameStop, and you're telling me I'm going to be playing the same game every month for $15? Like that is ridiculous. I mean, and it's not the first game. I mean, people did that with Ultima Online. People did that with EverQuest, but I think what you were saying is a very big deal. Like more normal people were able to get into Warcraft because of its approachability. Like Ultima Online is not a particularly approachable game. Like I could not tell my mom to play it, and like maybe my mom could figure out World of Warcraft. Not at like a high level rating thing, but just at like a clicking and just like getting into an endless grind type thing. I think she could.
Carly's dad played it, and like not with my influence. He was like, "Oh yeah, I picked up WoW," and I'm just like, "I'm sorry, what now?" Yeah.
And also, I mean, just going into genres like the MMO genre and part of just single player RPGs have picked up a lot of the design language of World of Warcraft. Like, there is no understatement that MMOs. Parts of MMOs and MMO design sucked before World of Warcraft, and there are parts of World of Warcraft design that suck and are grindy and all that too, but it like everything became a WoW clone after World of Warcraft came out. They're like, oh shit, this is how we make an MMO that people actually want to sit and play for the rest of their lives. Except for Stefan, who still plays EverQuest 1, but for the rest of the world, it became World of Warcraft
like
1.
Even if you look at Stefan when he's online, he's playing WoW.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I agree with the pick. It's not on my list, but yeah, it's definitely up there.
Yeah, it's look, I'm not going to fault anyone for earlier picks because they're saying, oh, it did first and WoW couldn't be here without that. Yeah, but I just think that the force and like the cultural impact is too great to be left off the list.
Yeah, definitely. And because it's a PC game with a subscription, like a used copy is worthless because like there's nothing you could do with it because when you play WoW, you just download the client. So it's like $10.
I mean, also think about that as a barrier of entry. Like, yeah, computers were very common in houses then, but so were consoles, and they were just like that became the most important, like our most played thing when consoles were sitting in everyone's houses too.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Also, if you asked me like for PC, like what are some of the most desirable collector's editions, like World of Warcraft, it's not I don't think in like the PC collecting community, it is viewed as like one of the most desirable collector's editions. But of PC collector's editions that exist, I think it has some of the most hype just because there are so many people who played World of Warcraft. So those have always been like pretty expensive. In like an era where like every PC box was like $20, that would still be selling for like over $100.
Yeah,
the vanilla one. The other ones are worthless, but the vanilla World of Warcraft collector's edition.
I mean, even the other ones aren't completely worthless. But anyways, I have one final question for you before we move away from WoW. We don't need to talk about it too much.
Okay.
Alliance or Horde?
I played WoW for like 2 seconds. I was into Lord of the Rings Online, which is 100% a WoW clone, but just with Lord of the Rings.
So you weren't like, I mean, you weren't
I don't
like
even know if I was Horde or
like,
Alliance.
what was your build of Paladin? Like, because everyone was a Paladin. I mean,
I had no build. Johnny, I went around like the starter zones. I'm sorry. Okay. I tried to start a game with Ada, and she was not into it at all. She's like, WoW sucks. Can we play something better? It was hard to falter.
Okay. What's your next game?
I'm
not gonna like. We don't like. Look. There's a lot of people who were just 100% not into WoW. I can't fault those people.
I mean, all right, Johnny. My next game is Half-Life. We're gonna go 2 PC games in a row. Oh, I love this episode.
Never heard of it.
Half-Life. There are so many games you could pick for this, but Half-Life blends narrative, puzzle solvings, and gameplay, and it's a first-person shooter at like the crux of first-person shooters being the most important genre on planet Earth. It's the perfect video game. and how video games have become. You would talk about like The Last of Us, The Last of Us 2, Uncharted, fucking what else? Even like all the RPGs, how they're designed now, where story is. I mean, well, story's always been a big part of RPGs. But the way that it takes the story and you actually play it, like we were talking about how Mario climbs to the top of the girders where Donkey Kong is, and he is living that story in real time. That is like a very, very simplistic story. But the thing Half-Life does, which is so amazing, is when you start the game, it just starts off as a normal day of work, and then shit goes wrong with an experiment you do as like a physicist. And like there's a good 45 minutes where you're just like going through the motions of your day at work and watching the shit go wrong at work. Video games did not do that. This is 1998. If I think of 1997, the most popular first-person shooters, fucking Quake 2 and GoldenEye, those games still had levels. You just picked a level and you played the level, and the goal, I like GoldenEye a lot, a little bit more complex. The goal is to get to the end of the level, and Half-Life is not that. It took the medium and it elevates it. It is the A24 movie of first-person shooters, and they set out to do that. They're like, we don't think first-person shooters are innovating the genre enough. We are going to make something better than this. And like, they fucking did. And it's just everything. And the thing is, you go on all these lists. We're going to spoil a game that is not on our list. But like Metal Gear Solid makes all of these lists for the same reason, because of the huge blend of gameplay and story. But the way Metal Gear Solid does it has like 20-minute cutscenes sometimes, or it has, you're like walking, and then you get a call on the codec and you answer the call, and then you're scrolling through text like it's an RPG. Like, yes, Metal Gear Solid, incredibly important game for 100 reasons. But listening to a codec call with voice acting is not that different from reading the story in Final Fantasy VII. Half-Life, like when stuff is happening, the NPCs are like running around and talking to you, and you're just playing the game. Like, it does not stop the game. I don't know if Half-Life has any cutscenes. It's huge. And then on top of that, it's the basis for Team Fortress, huge game, Counter-Strike, huge game. These were mods for the original Half-Life. Day Defeat to a lesser extent. I mean, this is not obviously a controversial pick. I don't think we have any controversial picks, really. But Half-Life's the fucking game, Johnny.
So, yeah, and on my list, actually having forgot that Counter-Strike started out of Half-Life, I put Counter-Strike just because of the competitive gaming scene. Like when I first started seeing people play competitive shooters, it was like, oh, have you heard of this game? Not Half-Life. Have you heard of Counter-Strike? And I was like, no, what is this? And yeah, people like I knew were going to internet cafes to play. They were playing Counter-Strike, and they're still playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah, Counter-Strike, I mean, when you look at esports, it's like fucking MOBAs, whatever the fuck MOBAs are, why ever the fuck people play MOBAs, and then like Counter-Strike Go, or yeah, Counter-Strike Go, is that I don't even know what the most popular Counter-Strike is anymore. I know they don't play 1.6, 1.6 isn't the most popular one. It's either Go or Source, I don't know. Anyway.
I can't fault you for putting this. Half-Life is so important and so big. It also helped create other games that are like super important and big. Like, I'm not going to put Portal on a most important game list ever, but also what an amazing game Portal is, and it comes out of this. Just like, come on,
Johnny,
man.
fucking
Counter-Strike?
Half-Life led to Half-Life 2, which is like a game that would be out. It wouldn't make the top 10, but like Half-Life 2, another incredibly important game in just terms of world building and physics and narrative. All the same reasons Half-Life is, just turned up to 11. It's you might say that people have been waiting for Half-Life 3 for like forever. 15 years, almost 20 years at this point.
Longer, yeah.
and like, because Half-Life 2 is such an amazing, groundbreaking game too. Half-Life also led to fucking Steam. What is PC gaming? I don't know. It's not the fucking Epic Game Store. It's not good old games. You could basically call Steam its own fucking console because it is the PC industry at this point.
Yeah, and when you've got Steam Decks out there that just run Steam, like now it's not even just in the land of computers. It's in your hands at home, sitting on the couch, and going anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, it's just another one of these everything games like Donkey Kong to me, where it just kind of does everything.
It's everything. Yeah,
And it led to everything.
It is so important that it's embarrassing that I don't have it on my list.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The first release of Half-Life, Johnny, it's got an orange box just with the logo on it, and then it's a gatefold box, but the gatefold flap is not the full length of the box, and then you can kind of see Gordon Freeman's face peeking out on the side.
Classic box.
Yep. It's like $150 to $200. Definitely a game that has seen a huge price bump since COVID. And then there's a number of sticker variants, like you can get one that says like Game of the Year on it, or there's like little promo stick. I don't even remember what the promos are for. If I'm getting like a first print for this reason, I like it without the stickers. So that's what I would say to get.
I mean, you could also just buy it on the Xbox.
You can buy it on the PlayStation 2. I'm sure like sealed PlayStation 2 copies of Half-Life, they've probably sold for hundreds of dollars. Meanwhile, there's like a sealed Half-Life that's sold at Goodwill for like $600, like a PC first print one. I wonder if a PlayStation 2 copy is sold for more. You know, that historic PlayStation 2 version of Half-Life.
It's so funny to me that like Half-Life 2, just to play episode 2 on the 360, they like put out the orange box, and Portal and Team Fortress are just thrown in there, which would both be games that rank highly on other lists. It's fucking Half-Life, man. Come on.
Yeah. Orange box was pretty fucking great too.
Yeah.
But it's not Half-Life. All right, Johnny, you give me one. I think we've talked enough about this. Everyone knows how great it is. If you haven't played Half-Life, what are you doing? It holds up. I promise.
I'm going to talk about a little game called Counter-Strike. No, I'm not actually even going to talk about it. We talked enough. I'm going to even just strike it from my list.
All right. Got Counter-Strike on there. You know, Johnny, there's a whole aspect, like, it is ridiculous how many things we just talked about, like fucking Steam and Half-Life 2 and everything that led to. This is like a seedier aspect, but skin gambling, like that is huge. There is like this whole underage gambling epidemic that is a result of Counter-Strike and what that led to with like skins and like even just like cosmetics in video games in general.
Well, just the importance of cosmetics.
That through line comes back to Half-Life. It is more attributable to the later Counter-Strike games, but like there is an element of that definitely to Counter-Strike of whatever that. I don't know enough about skin gambling, but I know like it is a bigger problem. It's like a thing that people don't think about, but it's like a big problem for like young people gambling.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know enough about it either. Again, when I was thinking, it was just like, oh man, if we don't mention Counter-Strike, we're probably going to get flayed. And then you're like, oh, Half-Life, Johnny. I was like, well, I'm a fucking dummy. All right, let's move on. Yeah. So, Counter-Strike is important all unto itself. I don't feel like it's a terrible thing to be on this list. But you should just talk about it in the same breath as Half-Life, even though it is worthy of its own conversation too.
Yep. All right, give me another one then, Johnny.
All right. Maybe look, I know, I'm going to throw some obscure stuff at me. So this was only available on mainframes. You've never heard of it. It's called The Legend of Zelda. Yeah. So Legend of Zelda, why is it important? Well, sure, you've heard of Mario, but Zelda is the second tentpole of Nintendo, and it created like basically all of the ideas that couldn't be made for Mario. They made this other style of game, and it was just adventure. And Zelda, yes, there are lots of games on PC and all of this before that. Yeah, sure, and on Atari that kind of did this, but Zelda is a phenomenon in the way that none of these other things are. Zelda is still going. It's an ongoing series. People are patiently and impatiently awaiting Breath of the Wild 2. And Breath of the Wild considered one of the best games ever made, like in list, like that's on people's top lists, in their top 20 probably. Zelda is a crazy series because it's got so many games that people consider one of the best games ever. And in a way that I don't think Mario necessarily has. I
would agree with that.
Yeah. So, which is crazy to think about because Mario is so important, but it also has this this aspect of like, oh, I'm going on an adventure and I can set myself in this hero, and he doesn't really say anything and he saves a princess, and that's like very typical fantasy. You just suddenly were playing these fantasies that were out there that felt like a little bit like RPGs, almost felt like Zelda is not an RPG. Stop it, people. It's just an adventure game, but it gave you vibes of that, like, oh, I'm going on this quest, and it had this overworld map, and importantly, it helped equalize the difference between Japan and the Famicom and the NES, because this was the introduction of save batteries. So you could suddenly save your progress, and you didn't have to have like this disgusting password that as a kid who could barely like write that you would definitely get wrong, or like Mega Man, they give you some weird symbology chart and you're like, all right, well, I'm doing hieroglyphics now. I just hope that I can remember these so I can start my game from where I was. Zelda, it's also a big like in the collecting world, Zelda is like an it piece, like check out my Zelda, and people have paid massive amounts of money for, not to be undersold, that what people want to do for Zelda. And so I'm leaning a little bit on Zelda as a franchise here, not just the first Zelda, but the first Zelda is what led to all those franchises, and it's a great game unto itself. Please stop squirming in your chairs about Ocarina of Time. I don't want to talk about it. This game is more important. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. Just everything it did for the action adventure genre, and I could point out, whatever PC 88 game plays similarly to Zelda and came out before Zelda was released. It doesn't fucking matter.
You know what it did? It didn't do? It didn't become Zelda. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like, people's moms who play video games know who Zelda is, like, or what?
I don't think they do.
They know who Link is, but they call him. But it got a cartoon. It's like, come on, it got its own cartoon. It's actually incredible that it hasn't had like a revived anime series or something from Nintendo.
I don't know. I mean, aren't there like rumors or stuff? Isn't there like a live action thing in development? I can't see how that would possibly be good, but
it sounds like it would be terrible. Like, I think it's something that could play as a cartoon series or an anime series, but being live action, that's a bigger ask.
Yeah, I mean, the size and scope of Zelda, I'm trying to think of NES games. Like, I know it really came out in 1986 on Famicom Disk System. It came out in 1987. What came out in 1987 on NES? I mean, I'm sure there were great games. Like, Punch-Out was 1987. All right, let me read. Like, Mega Man, cool game with 6 stages, fucking 3D battles of World Runner, fucking Jaws, fucking Gotcha, like Rad Racer, that would be like the scale of a game you might get, Wizards and Warriors, but Zelda is a much bigger game than any of these. Like, the save battery is a big deal.
Yeah, all the hidden areas, like, just like a game that made you just walk around burning random bushes hoping you found 30 rupees. Come on.
I mean, I was not there for it, but the element of like, like discussing secrets on the schoolyard.
Oh. Well, yeah. And it did a thing that had never really been done for Nintendo games that was going on with PC games. People were making their own maps to like mark the secrets. Yes, it was a map in game, but like people had their custom maps. Like, oh yeah, in this screen this is the bush you burn, and then the second quest. The idea of the second quest comes out of here, and maybe there was a game that did it first.
Oh man,
sure, but fucking Zelda. Everybody knows Zelda's second quest. This is not like. And people were mad that Breath of the Wild didn't have one, and other Zeldas haven't had like a mirror world. Like, people are, and I don't know why Nintendo hasn't like dipped back into this, but it also like kind of became New Game Plus. Like, that idea, I think, is born out of what Zelda did with its second quest.
That's interesting. So I've never looked into the history of New Game Plus.
We should look into it.
I've never done the Zelda Second Quest. I don't know how different it is.
You've never done the Zelda Second Quest?
No.
Shut up. What the fuck are you saying right now?
What are you
You've never played the Second Quest?
I've never played the Second Quest. I just imagined they rearranged some shit and made it more difficult. Like,
well, and then like
Johnny, you beat Super Mario Brothers and they like changed the enemies. I've never beaten that.
Yeah, I mean, so what's interesting is because they did do it on Super Mario, and lots of the minus worlds and all the stuff you can find in Super Mario. But that was not exactly the same as Zelda, because Zelda, since you were saving your progress, you could revisit that world and keep going. It was so much bigger.
Yeah, man, I really want to know what the first. Oh, I'm thinking Pitfall 2. Oh, it's not really a second quest, because that's just an expanded version of the game. It's not a second quest. Is Legend of Zelda the first legit second quest? Like Ghost and Goblins, I'm on Wikipedia now. It says maybe Ghost and Goblins. That doesn't fucking count.
But Ghost and Goblins isn't the second quest. That's a fuck you moment no one enjoyed.
Yeah.
Also, so I want you to think about this before we move on. There was people who named their character Zelda and only ever played the second quest and did not understand why they were disaligned with people when they were trying to talk about what was going on in the game.
See, that's the dumbest shit, because that's the most obvious name you could have done. So the thing is, the first time I played Zelda, I didn't beat it. I didn't beat the original Legend of Zelda until probably 2009. But anytime I played before that, I put my name as Zelda. So I'd only ever played the second quest before I actually went and beat it. And by the time I did that, I'm like, oh, don't put your name as Zelda, you fucking idiot. You're playing the second quest.
Hilarious. Yeah, just it's a very funny thing to think about. Kids trying to be on the schoolyard, no, you burn right here. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? So this guy's a liar. Because if you weren't there for the 80s, and the schoolyard rumors were rampant. So much bullshit out there. Kids just making stuff up or getting information wrong. And you'd be like, this guy's just a fucking liar. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has never beat this game. Well, you know where he said the second level is? Not even close. The second dungeon is not there. You would just be like, no, that guy cannot be trusted.
Johnny, I was in 4th grade when Pokemon came out, and Mew is in the game, but it was only ever unlockable from special events, and fucking everyone had a different way that you would go get Mew. There was a truck that if you pushed it really hard, you could push the truck and Mew's under it. Fucking no, you couldn't get Mew without using glitches, Johnny. There's no way to get Mew.
I feel you. But see, and those kids were just liars, and then these poor bastards were just unfortunately named their character Zelda.
All right, Johnny, you got anything else to say about Zelda?
You can find a nice copy. There are no hang tabs for Zelda. And make sure you get with the tips and tricks in there, and spend between $150 to $200 on a nice one.
Johnny, Zelda was a Famicom Disk System game ported to the NES. You can't tell me it's not a port. Has microphone features only usable on Famicom. The earliest-ish Famicom versions have yellow Disk System text on the front of the manual. The later ones will have Disk System in white. There's also insert differences. There's too many to get into. But the thing that matters for the NES version is that on the very bottom right of the box where it says Nintendo Entertainment System, you're looking for a TM after that. That's the hot TM. First print. That's probably worth
Second print has an R.
Yep. And all the subsequent prints. And that's going to be hundreds of dollars, if not $1,000 for a nice complete box there now. And then the final thing to watch out for is that The Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, they have the little window to show you that has a gold cartridge in the box. And they actually come with unique baggies that have a hole in them so that the cartridge will shine through the box better, won't be covered up by a baggie. And those baggies, pretty rare. It is rarer to find a baggie than a first print copy of the game. So,
also, the idea of putting a hole in that baggie so the gold could shine through, you're just like, well, what's the point of the baggie then?
I mean, yes. I love that they definitely manufactured it, and they're like, "Oh, this looks like shit. We got to put a hole in this baggie."
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder what the I'm just so curious if on the factory line, if that was something they figured out, or before they went to factory line. Factory line, they came out and they just looked at the first run and were just like, holy shit, this is terrible. I wonder if there's a print run of Zelda's with a horrible fucking baggie in it.
There's 100 copies, and they're like, oh man, I'll just ship them, dude.
Yeah.
Gotta go find that sealed, guys. Come on.
Yeah, so, yeah, I talk about it a lot, but if you don't understand some of the weirdness that happens on factory lines that would make different variants that people would never believe you existed, 100% go watch how a factory operates. It's incredible. Some of the weird stuff that happens.
Johnny, when I see, oh, by the way, just for prices, like Famicom versions of the game, like fucking whatever, $40 will probably get you a pretty nice complete one, and there is no price discrimination between variants on the Famicom side. It also got re-released on a cartridge on Famicom, and that one is like maybe $100 complete in box. I don't know. It's rarer because it was released in the 90s. So it was like significant. Like the Famicom Disk System came out in 1986, so it was like an old hat game when it came out on cartridge. It's actually called The Legend of Zelda 1. There's a 1 in the title. Does that make it a different game? Does it count?
Yeah, it does.
That's interesting. If you want a cardboard box Japanese version, okay, but it is so much easier to find on Famicom Disk System and cheaper, and that's the original version. I would just get that and not worry about the cartridge. Johnny, when I see an action-adventure game, like the first thing that comes into my mind is, oh, that's like Zelda. And you know what other game does that for me, Johnny? It's Diablo 1. Because basically anytime if I see an isometric game in general, probably, anytime I see loot, anytime I see mana and HP on the screen at the same time, anytime I see a fucking point-and-click interface for any game ever, I'm like, oh, it's like Diablo.
Mana and HP? Like every RPG ever?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so in Final Fantasy, you've got, like, it's hidden in some menu somewhere, and Diablo, the interface is like, I don't know, let's just have 2 giant fucking orbs on the screen at all times. And then, like, so many games just took that design language, and they're like, oh, let's just steal Diablo and just be Diablo. All right, this is a good interface. It's not even just the computer RPG genre that it influenced, which is the main thing and the thing that I'm the most interested in, but fucking like Borderlands would not exist without Diablo. There are games that had inventories and items and shit before Diablo, obviously, but the randomized loot of Diablo, I think, is the one that everyone goes back to. But also before Diablo, like a lot of these computer RPGs were turn-based. Diablo 1 was supposed to be turn-based, and the Blizzard developers were like pushing back, like, oh, we really want to make it real time. And I forgot, whatever bigwigs were like, oh no, it's going to take too much development time. And the story is like the guy who did it, he programmed it in like a night. He's like, oh, the game's real time now, by the way. Which it's fucking awesome.
That's such a big balls move. Just like walk in, just like, yeah, I did it. It's done.
Yeah. And then like multiplayer, like playing Diablo online, like the thing you do in Diablo games, that was also like somewhat of an afterthought. That was not like one of the core features that I think they were planning with the game. That's like a lot of games in the 90s are like, what if we add multiplayer? Oh, it became one of the most influential multiplayer games of all time, huh?
I mean, like you said, it affected console games too. Like for a long time, like we're still getting console games that are basically just doing what Diablo did, or getting versions of Diablo on the console now. But like Marvel Ultimate Alliances, like all the Baldur's Gates, like, oh, we can't really bring these computer RPGs to a video game console, but we can kind of do a Diablo style version of it. It's crazy that happened.
I think there's a gameplay loop. Like Diablo as a game is kind of short. Like there's one dungeon and you just get to the bottom of it. But the gameplay loop is you just go in, you use your abilities, you kill a bunch of stuff, you get their loot, and then you get that dopamine hit.
You play the second quest.
Shut the fuck up. You get the dopamine hit of finding like the cool item that you're looking for, and then like you log on and you do it again the next day. And like, not to criticize how games are played, like an average game of Diablo does not require a lot of skill. Like once you just get Firewall, and like if you're a sorceress, once you get Firewall, like things just start melting in front of you, and then you're just kind of brainlessly clicking away. And there's this very Skinner box element to it where it's just like you're clicking the button and loot is occasionally coming out. And I think a lot of games have picked up and like really refined that and turned it into like this addictive machine. I'm looking at you, mobile games. I'm looking at you, modern games as a service games. And I don't think Diablo probably started that, but it's definitely a landmark title in that Skinner box style of gameplay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with you.
And
it's super important, and I think people, because we looked at a lot of those lists, and they did not. I feel like a lot of those didn't like rate Diablo nearly high enough, or like even understand the importance of it.
The Diablo did not appear on a lot of lists. I don't know if that's my computer RPG bias. I know I like computer RPGs a lot, but man, like there's so many genres I would look at that are not computer RPGs and be like, okay, so it's like Diablo. Like if I see like an inventory system, I'm like, oh, you put inventory, you put like the shit you pick up in like a grid, so it's like Diablo. Like it's so many things. I could easily have put Diablo 2 in this slot, but like because Diablo led to Diablo 2, I just put the first one. Diablo 2 added deeper character building, because where you put your skill points in Diablo 2 is very, very important. And a bigger multiplayer element in Diablo 2, like you kind of almost wouldn't even play Diablo 2 single player.
Well, if you were really big brain, you would have put Diablo 4 on your list, because that's going to change everything.
I mean, if I was the biggest brained, I would put Path of Exile, the best Diablo game ever made.
I mean, there is a collector's edition.
There's a physical collector's edition, because I think Rudy has it in the background of Alpha Investments videos. Anyway, Diablo is a balls common game. Again, a game that has become more expensive in the pandemic, but $50 to $100 for a big box version. Like, not that expensive for fucking Diablo. It's got the fucking devil on the cover, and it's called Diablo, so it's cool as shit. You should just go buy a copy of Diablo.
But earlier, what's it called in Japan, where the first print came from?
Shut the fuck up. The first print, I don't know the nitty gritty details of Diablo, but later prints have a little Game of the Year badge on it, like a little yellow circle. So get one without the circle if you care. That's all I got to say about Diablo.
Okay.
Fucking rules.
You got no argument from me. I like Diablo.
You're talking about friend's dad. My friend's dad, when I was in like middle school, like my friend played SimCity, and I had two of my friends' dads actually played Diablo, and one of them like showed me the game. They're like, "Oh, hey TJ, yo, yeah, you play video games, right? Yo, check this shit out. It's called Diablo." And he just like sat me in front of the computer and watched me play Diablo for 2 hours.
That's
very cool funny. Shit.
Yeah, so Carly had Diablo. Like I think her mom or dad played it. Because there's just like we have a random copy of Diablo, just the disc and case. I'm just like, what is this? I'm like, why do you have Diablo? We've had it for years. Anyways, yeah, no argument for me on Diablo. Yeah, I wonder if and all of my friends love Diablo, so I even wound up playing it a little bit. So I'm curious if it is your bias that got you there, but I feel like I have the same bias, so I don't know.
I mean, you agree, and it's a computer game, so I can't be that far off. Come on.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm going to take us into territory that we have not gone yet.
Oh, man. I hope it's finally a mobile phone game.
It is. So have you heard of Cookie Clicker? Of course you have. It's one of the most important games of all
Johnny,
time.
I can't buy that. I'm going to have to veto that pick.
Oh, okay.
Well, and as everybody knows, the first major incremental game was actually Candy Box, which is an HTML game.
Okay, well, okay, fine then. Hear me out. Candy Crush. Why isn't that one of the most important games ever?
I think it is.
Okay, great. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Resident Evil, Tyler, for the PlayStation 1. Also known as Biohazard. You've probably heard of this game.
Oh,
or
Biohazard, of course, yes.
Yeah.
For the Japanese PlayStation 1.
Yes. So, is there a lot to talk about this? So, it was the pioneer of this survival genre, at least on consoles, right? Of survival horror.
I don't know, Johnny took a lot of notes from Sweet Home.
Yes, which was developed by the same guy.
Yeah.
So, and that was on the NES. Sure. But The reason I like, you could argue that maybe some games are more important, but PlayStation, the biggest video game company of the time, PlayStation 1 won that era, PlayStation 2 wins that era. Everything just becomes survival horror games, and that's because of Resident Evil. They just keep making an F ton of Resident Evils. It's on the Saturn, it's on the Dreamcast, it's everywhere. Just Resident Evil. It was so popular, it made it onto, like Resident Evil 2 made it onto the N64, which is a technical feat I still cannot wrap my head around. You probably haven't thought about it, but if you think about how hard it would be to put Resident Evil 2 on the N64, it's magic. It's magic that it works at all in any form, and people are like, yeah, I like that version. Anyways, Resident Evil, it pioneered this genre. It made it what it is. It made it so we have all this, again, a series that's still going on. They keep releasing the first, second, third one over and over and over. It's a game that it's so important. You start to see these games, they're so important and they're easy enough to port that they just begin to enter perpetuity on whatever the newest console is. And Resident Evil was like one of the start of these types of games and is definitely at the forefront of that they're like, oh, Resident Evil is so important and sells so well and easily. We're going to keep making it again and again at every console generation. So, yeah.
Which is weird. I mean, people like Resident Evil. What am I talking? It's not weird. I don't like Resident Evil 1. I love Resident Evil 2. I can't get into Resident Evil 1, and you're right. They just keep remaking it.
Yeah, constantly. I mean, and again, it defined a style of game that just like PlayStation 2, all the most expensive games pretty much are survival horrors. That became like a survival horror machine. And that's arguably one of the most important consoles and sold so many games. Like, come on. Like, people didn't really put it there. And this is a pick. I'm like, I guess it could be argued off. You could say other stuff is more important. But as far as series and cultural impacts and movies and television that is not good, they exist. And because Resident Evil is so giant, you can tell me whatever game you want, but like how many of them have like 6 movies and then also like a couple of bad animated series and then like a Netflix series? Just, it's wild how popular it is.
Yeah. And I mean, you
keep
saying it set the foundation for survival horror, like, because Resident Evil has things like bad controls. I'm not even going to say like weird controls. It has bad controls. It has weird aiming. It has limited ammo. And like some of that isn't even intentional. But when you play a game that came out 10 years after Resident Evil and it has shitty controls and bad aiming, you're just like, oh, that's an element of the genre. That's to like heighten the tension. Because it did do that, but I don't even think it did all of that intentionally.
No, like they name a control type. Oh, those are tank controls. You're like, what? What are you talking about? Get out of here.
You're not playing a human person.
I wonder where the origin of tank controls actually comes from. It better be
from tanks. What do you mean?
It better be a tank game.
I don't know. I'm on Wikipedia now. It says Grim Fandango, Resident Evil, and Tomb Raider. But those aren't the first. That's what made it popular.
Yeah.
It's just a tank because I don't know.
Because, yeah. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Oh, you know what? Like, I mean, combat has tank controls because
true.
It's just the matter that going up doesn't point you up; it puts you forward. So that's a tank game.
I wonder if that's the origin. Anyways, this game is notable for being a long box release on the PlayStation 1, and this box is trash. So to get a nice one, you're gonna have to spend up on it. Good news though, in terms of games that are very important, the expense of this is not that high, but it comes in a long box style where the art will peel off the box. So good luck with Resident Evil. This is just an unfortunate, reality of this game. So go buy it. There are a couple of variants that come in jewel cases. There's like a double-sized jewel case. There's a single thin jewel case, and they have like also Resident Evil came out before what's it called? Analog sticks. So there's a version where they start to move to the analog sticks. There's a greatest hits. There's variants of that. There's a lot going on with the first Resident Evil, but the first print, the one you should get, the most iconic, is the long box.
How much does a long box one cost, did you say?
No, I didn't. So you can pick one up for like $70 to $100, but that's going to look bad. I might be missing a manual. And you're going up to like between $100 to $300, but really, again, condition matters, so you could be spending $500. Right. I think like between like $150 and $300, you might be okay, especially if you just acknowledge that whatever you do, it's going to peel at some point.
All right. I mean, I honestly, guys, I'm for a complete in box game that sold 7 million copies. Like, take a glue stick and stick that shit back down. Like, who cares? It will look nicer. I don't care. My Atari games that have peel-in labels. My Star Master has a label peeling up. I'm taking a purple glue stick and I'm putting that shit back down. Oh, it's not original glue on my loose cartridge of some Atari game. Stick that shit down.
Yep. Anyways, look there. If you want to know more about Resident Evil, there's about 400 videos on YouTube that will love to show you all the gameplay, but you've probably heard of it because I think it's one of the most important games ever.
I was hoping that the big box PC version would be like clearly more expensive, and I think it is because it's definitely rarer. Obviously, it's rarer than the PlayStation version. It's in the realm of like $300 though for the PC version. I think it's just because it's so iconic of a game. I don't even like the Resident Evil box art, but like it's still fucking Resident Evil. So I think people just want the giant box for Resident Evil.
I mean, and the better cover I think is on the Saturn.
What's the Saturn? Just the zombie?
Yep.
Resident Evil 2 doesn't have good box art either. I'm not into it.
No.
But I'm trying to think like, Silent Hill probably has better box art. Silent Hill's box art's fucking awful. It's like a mess of gray. You can't even see what's going on.
It's funny because the American Resident Evil Saturn box is that like zombie head. I actually don't think that's good. But the European version, the PAL version, is just the regular Resident Evil box.
Oh, let me look up the European. That's the regular Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Are you is there a good Resident Evil box art? Because I don't think there is.
Maybe there's one. I mean, you're right. Resident Evil 2 is a better box. The worst one I think is the director's cut. That one's terrible.
What's on the director's cut? We're an audio podcast. Paint a word picture.
Oh, sorry. It's the guy holding the shotgun. And instead of knowing that he's in the manor, where the game takes place, it's just like on this horrible orange and black background, and there's like a big red badge in the middle of it, and it says directors. It's like, and it's only like half his body. It looks terrible. It looks terrible.
I'm gonna give a major problem of what you just said. So you said the guy holding a shotgun. Most games, especially like some of the most iconic games of all time, you will be able to identify the character on the front, but you play as Jill Valentine.
Yep.
Who's on the front? Is that Chris Redfield then?
I think so, but his face is all
but
weird.
I mean, that's like not who you play in the game.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I'm looking it up right now. It is Richard Aiken.
Okay. That's right. It's weird. I didn't really think about that as a point, but you're right. That is a quirk.
Why is he on the box art?
Maybe they had different plans. I mean, we could go with the zombie being the best cover because it represents what you see in the game. Also, Resident Evil, way cooler name than Biohazard. Fight me.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know where that name came from. Like some of these Japanese translations, you could tell where it came from. I think like Ninja Gaiden, they picked that as the name because they thought it sounded cool, which is like absolutely the correct choice. Yeah, Resident Evil, excellent name for a series. So good. You know what? Less good is how like when they're doing like the village and they turn like the village into like the 7 Roman numerals. I'm done with that. Scream 6, turning the M into Roman numerals. Fuck that. Stop doing that. But yeah, I'm in on the name. Anyway, we need to get to another game, Johnny.
Okay, go.
Let's step away from RPGs and go to Grand Theft Auto 3, Johnny. If you if you were there in 2001 when I pirated this game off shortly after it was released because I was a terrible 12-year-old boy, and you asked me, "Hey, little Tyler, what's the most important game ever made?" There is no chance I would have said any other game on planet Earth other than Grand Theft Auto 3.
Hey, little Tyler, what's the most important
It's
game
Grand
ever?
Theft Auto 3, Johnny. Johnny,
I feel like I'm speaking directly. Never mind. I'm not even going to say it.
Okay.
Go on.
Grand Theft Auto, I mean, obviously very important game in terms of interesting open world design. I mean, like literally not the series, Grand Theft Auto 1, and then Grand Theft Auto 2 was basically a graphics upgrade to that. But Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001, I could not believe a game like this existed. When I played it, you could go anywhere. You could get into any car. I remember specifically the fact that there were just like all these cars driving around and I could hijack and just drive any single one of them. It was as if like AI existed and was just pumping dopamine directly into my brain with exactly what I was looking for. I mean, I think everyone has played the Grand Theft Auto series and knows what it is, but it's kind of that Quake 2 to Half-Life moment where it's like, oh, video games aren't levels anymore. It's just like this amazing open universe, and it's just like I could do anything. I'm not like going through a structure. The goal isn't to get to the end. The goal isn't to, get the most points. It's just like I live in this world now. Okay. Definitely one of the games I've played most in my life as well. Yeah, I think everybody knows how important open world design philosophy has become to video games. I think to a fault, games are trying to be open world when like they're sometimes better when they're linear, just because of how important and how much players clamor for the idea of openness. It's like $9. Go buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna fight you on it because you like it.
Whoa, you're considering like not even giving me this one?
No, like really? Is this, do people care about like one, you didn't pick the first one. That seems weird. I know, and you have your reasons, but then it becomes like, is that just the best version of all this?
No. What? There was nothing like this. And then there was a whole open world crime genre that sprang up after this game, let alone just games in general. Breath of the Wild would not be Breath of the Wild if there wasn't a Grand Theft Auto 3.
I don't know.
And I don't think that like the Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 design philosophy.
Auto doesn't exist if you don't have The Legend of Zelda.
Correct. Yes. And I mean, The Legend of Zelda led to Grand Theft Auto in some way. And that led to Grand Theft Auto 3, which I think is such a breakthrough in terms, it's a graphical upgrade. I realize a lot of it is just the graphical 3D upgrade. There's a lot of games that went to 3D and became very important. Super Mario 64. I think Metroid to Super Metroid, even though it was the same idea, was still a big upgrade. But I think Grand Theft Auto 3 is the biggest of the 3D upgrades.
I'm not going to dispute that it's an important game. Not at all. Or one of the most important franchises. In the top 10, I don't know that, but also I don't love Grand Theft Auto games. I don't like them.
You don't like Grand Theft Auto games? I thought everybody likes Grand Theft Auto games.
No, I disliked it. Disliked it a lot. I played a little bit of Grand Theft Auto 3, as a matter of fact, for, I don't know, maybe like 2 hours, and I was like, I hate this game.
Man.
And then I stopped immediately.
All right.
Yeah.
But you like Call of Duty. You like shooting people, but when you add like driving in fast cars anywhere you want to go,
it just wasn't for me. Look, but I recognized, I didn't say, hey, this is a bad game. I recognized that this just wasn't to my taste. That's just not what I wanted to do. But I did love LA Noire, and that is basically a Grand Theft Auto game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like,
if you can walk around a 3D environment and drive cars, there's no way I'm playing your game and I'm not thinking like, oh yeah, Grand Theft Auto 3. And I mean, you might think Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, but fuck you. Vice City and San Andreas are just building off the same exact formula with like upgrades. So GTA 3 is the one. Do not tell me San Andreas is going to make this list because it's such a more expansive game than GTA 3. Fuck you, GTA 3 is way more important than San Andreas.
But the GTA games are they also fall into that Resident Evil class of we're just going to keep releasing this game in every console genre. They've become part of that.
I mean they just upgraded. Oh well, the GTA 5. You're saying like they've definitely just like re-released that over and over. Yeah, I think there's probably some group of gamers that would argue like GTA 5 is more important just because, a lot of reasons like how expansive and immersive the open world is and how it's basically a metaverse online, quote unquote, and how it's been fucking re-released for 10 years and how it maybe has made the most money of any game ever. How it's maybe like the biggest budget game ever made. I don't know. Kind of like every Grand Theft Auto game just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's kind of scary. But to me, it's Grand Theft Auto 3, Johnny.
Okay, yeah, I'm not, like I said, I'm not arguing it. It just wasn't for me, but I do really like LA Noire. It just, that specific like crime genre was not to my taste. I don't enjoy that aspect of it. Anyways, here's a game that I think you could fight me on and I would lose. So let's go ahead and do it. Hey, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Call of Duty 4 specifically.
Nope, I'm not going to fight you there. If I'm going to pick one Call of Duty, it is Call of Duty 4, Johnny.
Yeah, so, and yes, I understand all of you PC Master Race people who are just like wanting to stab me right now. Look, the console, this was the game on the console. This brought the people, this normalized this is the one that did it all for everybody, massively multiplayer online, but on consoles, playing in maps, setting your guns exactly how you want. Sure, all these things exist at a place, but this is the one that really, I think, defined the Call of Duty series and what it has been built on since. And if you don't understand, they just pretty much release a new Call of Duty every single year. And yeah, you could say they make the same argument for Madden, but I think this has the bigger player base, and I think it has more crossover appeal than a Madden game. But yeah, I wouldn't like totally kill you on Madden either. But Modern Warfare is, especially this one, very important. And it finally got us out of the everything is just World War II. So that was a nice touch too.
Yep. I don't know shit about Call of Duty 3 because Treyarch sucks, and Call of Duty 3 was the last Treyarch Call of Duty I played. But also, before Call of Duty 4, like, the consoles weren't even like getting the real. Oh, I guess Xbox 360 got Call of Duty 2. But I remember Call of Duty Big Red 1 on the original Xbox, and then Call of Duty Finest Hour on like GameCube and PlayStation. Like there were like some bullshit Call of Duty games, and then Call of Duty 4.
This was real. This is like suddenly you were like a PC gamer all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't know enough about multiplayer because I only play Call of Duty single player, Johnny. But I know there are multiplayer aspects of Call of Duty that were introduced in Call of Duty 4 that carry through the series, but I don't know exactly what they are.
There's like a million editions of Call of Duty 4 too, so just be careful. Like I don't even know what the true first print is of this, and I'm sure someone like the modern, oh my God, Dan Gomez, modern database,
Johnny.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if he put game in it. Modern Database is such a hard name for me for some reason. Anyways, I'm sure like one day there's going to be a big list of all this, if there isn't already, that tells you exactly how to identify all the prints. Because if you just put Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 into your eBay search, you're going to get returns and you're going to see covers that look almost all the same, but then aren't. And how many different prints? Like everybody owned this game. It is not expensive. Like, you can go buy this game for $5 pretty much. $5-10. You can go own this, but you probably want the best version. And I'm sorry, I do not know which one that is at this point.
All right. I mean, I don't know either, but often with like these Call of Duty games, like they get like Game of the Year and all these like badges and shit on it. So if you just get a copy without all the badges and shit, honestly, for shit like Call of Duty, like it doesn't matter. You will always be able to find whenever like the first print is identified. If you don't care about sealed copies, like you will be able to get a first print of Call of Duty fucking 4. Yes. It will never be rare. So you really don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And this was on 360 and it was on PS3 3, and then there's a version called Call of Duty Modern Warfare on the Wii, which people like, and it's pretty good, but it's not exactly the same. So,
okay,
know that that's not the same thing.
All right,
and I would say get it on the Xbox because that was it was coming out on Xbox first at the time, so that was or at least
get it on the PC because it's a PC series.
Oh, get it on the PC, sure. Yeah, nope. Nope, it's less important on the PC.
You're out of your fucking mind. It's a PC genre and it's a PC series. Stop it.
Nope. Disagree.
I think it's so funny that professional Call of Duty is played with controllers because in like competitive environments, the way that the way first-person shooters work on consoles, like there's a little bit of like auto-aim with analog sticks, and that's a competitive advantage. So just everyone plays with controllers.
Interesting.
And it's just it's just so much more popular on consoles, probably. Yeah. Just because consoles, All right, Johnny.
Yeah, I do know. That's why I said buy it on the console.
Let's see. Are we going back to just fucking stupid ass computer RPGs? Johnny,
we haven't done that many. We only did like one computer RPG.
I know, but I've got more. Oh, believe me, I've got more, Johnny. Ultima Underworld. This has come up on Collector's Quest recently. Johnny, have you played a 3D RPG? Have you played a 3D video game? Have you played a first-person shooter? Have you played Skyrim? Have you probably played one of those 3D Grand Theft Auto games? Everything comes back to Ultima fucking Underworld. It is crazy. This game came out in 1992 alongside Wolfenstein 3D. And you just look at Wolfenstein 3D, and Wolfenstein 3D is fucking rad. Wolfenstein 3D might be a more fun and approachable game than Ultima Underworld, because like Ultima Underworld doesn't even have mouse look. Ultima Underworld's like years away from mouse look. You have to like drag your mouse to like the edges of the screen to look around. Ultima Underworld it's archaic. And it's not as fun as Wolfenstein 3D and like in an approachable, I could just jump in for 3 seconds and I understand what's happening kind of way. But it's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Going back to like blending gameplay and narrative, but like full 3D, like you can look up and down, you're going through a whole dungeon, the dungeon is alive, there's systems that are working even when the players aren't interacting with those systems. The graphics, the lighting, there's texture mapping in the game, and people think that when Wolfenstein 3D was in development, John Carmack saw something related to Ultima. Did I say Ultima Online? I meant Ultima Underworld. But John Carmack, who developed Wolfenstein 3D and Catacomb 3D, saw something that Ultima Underworld was doing, and he had the idea to do that in his engine for Catacomb 3D and Wolfenstein 3D. And he disputes that, but it doesn't fucking matter.
Okay.
Just like a Super Mario 64 level important 3D game. Especially for anything
Super
with
Mario
like
64,
dungeon crawling or RPG
of
elements. Yeah, Super Mario 64 not on our list, and Ultima Underworld is. And that's probably just because of the two people who are making the list. Ultima Underworld, we've talked about it. It's like $100-ish. There are a bunch of like CD re-releases, like multi-packs with Ultima Underworld 1 and 2. Fuck them. Get the original Ultima Underworld.
So you're talking about a game that is 100% in my blind spot, so I can't disabuse you of facts or anything. I can just say, nah.
Nah.
Nah. So, I don't have a real
Johnny,
argument.
what was the game of the year last year? Was it Elden Ring, which goes back to Dark Souls, which goes back to Demon Souls, which goes back to the fucking game King's Field, which was like directly influenced from Ultima Underworld because it's like the bedrock of 3D RPGs? It's not even. We're going to get to the bedrock of 3D RPGs later in the list.
Oh.
It's the bedrock of real-time 3D.
So it sounds like maybe there was even a better choice than this in your own list. All right. So,
you know what? Fuck you, Johnny. I'm going into mine. You skipped one. The next game on my list would be Wizardry. I don't like... If I'm thinking of like the 10 most influential games ever, like when you think of like how influence works with like butterfly effects, and you have like a big node of a game and then all these lines coming out of the node, when you're narrowing it down to a list as small as 10, it would be really hard not to pick a giant node that has a bunch of things leading back to it. Like, you wouldn't want to pick 2 games along the same branch, because one of those has to have more influence than the other.
Like, we're not picking multiple Zeldas.
Exactly. Perfect. Like, yes, The Legend of Zelda versus Ocarina of Time. Both of those are important and influential games. The Legend of Zelda is more, like, we wouldn't have both of those on the list, especially if we're narrowing the list down to 10. Wizardry and Ultima Underworld are, like, directly on the same fucking line of these computer RPGs and RPGs in general, and they're both so fucking important that they are both on my top 10 list of important influential games to collect.
Wizardry, one of the most unenjoyable games I've ever played. Go on.
Oh, yeah, and Wizardry, like, Ultima Underworld is, like, kind of cool. It's archaic. Like, Wizardry sucks. I don't like Wizardry.
It sucks. It sucks bad. Game. So it's like, I guess I understand that it's influential. I'll give you influential. Like, I don't know if I will give you most influential because it sucks. It sucks.
Wizardry was a fucking phenomenon. People fucking loved it. They're like, oh my God, I'm playing Dungeons & Dragons on my computer. I'm going to play this for dozens of hours. This is so much cooler than Space Invaders.
Part of our argument of, like, why Fortnite isn't in the list when it could be is, like, it didn't reach back and grab all the other people. Maybe it keeps reaching forward. Wizardry does not reach forward at all.
Reaching forward is not the same as reaching back. Also, we're having a different conversation that our viewers are not catching up on because they weren't part of the first part of this conversation.
Oh, sorry. Anyways, Wizardry does not capture and does not continue. So its influence becomes limited. It influenced those other things. It limited those other things, which then continue that influence. So Wizardry gets to ride the coattails of good games that did everything it did better. So I disagree.
No.
Yes. I disagree. Yes, that's true. That's a true statement.
So if this was some, like, obscure game that, like, didn't have any impact, like, Wizardry is not, like, the first Dungeons & Dragons computer RPG. Like, there are Plato Network games from, like, the mid-70s. There's, like, Temple of Apshai is an RPG on computers that came out in the 70s. There are games that came out before Wizardry with, like, fantasy themes and even, like, turn-based combat.
Why don't you tell us when Wizardry came out so we all know?
1980? 1981?
Okay.
No, see, don't ask me questions.
Well,
1981.
Paint a word picture. We're on a podcast.
You're right. It came out in 1981. It is not the first computer RPG, Johnny. Like, Calibeth, the game that came before Ultima, came out before Wizardry. But the most important thing with Wizardry is not just that it's this popular, popular. It's like the first game with a party. Not just that it was, like, this bedrock of the RPG genre, but Wizardry was also a hit in Japan, where I believe it became popular a little bit later than it became popular in America. I don't know the full story behind it. But Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Hydlide, Dragon Slayer, like, the foundational JRPGs were all directly influenced by Wizardry, and that became one of the most important gaming genres too. So you have all of the American RPGs, all of the JRPGs, and then everything that those two genres influences in games now, because everything that's not an RPG also has progression elements now. Kind of everything's a fucking RPG a little bit, and all of them flow through this Wizardry node when you go far enough down the chain.
Wizardry sucks. It sucks.
Oh man, I wish Joe is on the podcast too, because he loves that everything goes back to Ultima 1 and Wizardry 1.
Yeah, but Ultima didn't make your list.
I mean, the Japanese influence of Wizardry, I think, is bigger than Ultima, and, kind of kickstarted a major genre, so.
I stand my argument. There are things that can be very important and influence something else, but the thing that it influenced might become the bigger, more influential thing and become more important overall.
But if you think of what the most influential JRPG is, you can be like, Wizard and Princess, Panorama Toe, okay, I guess those don't count. Oh, but also Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Mugen no Shinzo 2, Hydlide, those are all really, like, foundational, important games. but you can't pick any one of them as the game. But you go down one level lower, and all of them point to Wizardry. And at that level, it's like just Wizardry and just Ultima are kind of sitting there.
I don't know. The way you're talking about Wizardry and Ultima, I think you should speak about Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest.
No, those are doing the same thing, and they have the same influence.
They have the same, but they have more. They have more. They have more of everything.
Mass Effect is like a third-person shooter that it's an American game that has nothing to do with JRPGs, but that has a line back to Wizardry. It's an entirely different genre and an entirely different region that comes back to Wizardry. And like Mass Effect does not owe very much to Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest.
Okay. Sure. Look, I get your argument. I just think Wizardry sucks.
I mean, Wizardry sucks. We're 100% on board. The Collector's Quest opinion is that Wizardry sucks.
It sucks.
I have never been able to play it very far.
Oh,
it is
God, awful.
Is rough.
Just, ugh. And it's like, it's not like I was so old and so far removed from bullshit RPGs, but man, Wizardry sucks.
Johnny, the Wizardry was originally released on the Apple II. There are a bunch of different variants. I'll just say the first print. The front of the box says it was like made by or copyright by Andrew Greenberg and Robert Woodhead. And the first print, I believe, says copyright by Andrew Greenberg and Surtech Software. They fucked Robert Woodhead and put the company name instead of his name. So that's a fun variant to look out for. This game is like $100. I put $100 to $200. I can't even believe I put that high. I feel like you could probably get it for less than $100, but maybe there were just some crazy sales recently. Or just don't buy Wizardry because it sucks.
Yeah,
I don't know. You could do that too.
You could just acknowledge that it existed and like, oh, it influences other stuff, and then go buy something fun.
I think there's something to that. Like, I think Diablo's not crazy expensive, and Diablo is a fucking badass game that I think like everyone can kind of get behind. Like, owning Diablo's fucking cool. Like, I think Wizardry, maybe you can just acknowledge it and not buy it.
Yeah, that's like some hardcore collector nonsense purchase. That's a Tyler purchase. That's a Tyler purchase. Yes. Don't do that to yourself. All right. Tyler, since you just talked about PCs, let me go into my safe zone. Hey, Street Fighter 2, you ever heard of it?
Oh yeah. That was a pretty popular fighting game, I think.
I think the most popular, probably.
Now, wait. Before you get into this, Johnny, Street Fighter 2, you're not going to go for a Street Fighter 1? I think that's maybe more influential and foundational.
No one gives a shit about...
when you start drawing that graph, like, everything comes back to Street Fighter 1.
Nope. No, and no. Okay, no. Street Fighter 2 became the example for fighting games to now. It's still happening. Like, it set the stage. It was like, oh, yes, there was other games that pitted a fighter on one end of the screen and, on opposite ends of the screens, I should say. They come, they got a life bar, they fight. Like, yeah, that shit was going on well before. God, what was that computer game? What was the first one called? I forget.
Karate Champ?
Yeah, Karate Champ. Like, just, yeah, you did that.
Kung Fu?
It was, but those were so limited. And then suddenly Street Fighter found out, like, especially the arcade one. Like, let's specifically talk about the arcade cabinets. One, it revived arcades that were starting to struggle, at the, in the 90s. Like, boom, early 90s, like 1990, Street Fighter 91 hits it, and then it's a phenomenon in the arcades. It brings people back. Then you have competition. People, then everything is fighting games. Everything is fighting games, and they're getting ported to Super Nintendo and Genesis and every video game system. Forever now, it becomes a huge genre that, like, people maybe like this game, but this defined it as the genre and then made other companies exist because they wanted to make a fighting game to set, like, up against this. Hey, that sculptor's cut that no one loves? Thanks, Street Fighter. Primal Rage, which also sucks? Thanks, Street Fighter. I know you Primal Rage people are out there like, no, it doesn't. It does. I'm sorry. But Street Fighter 2, it is the thing. Multiple characters, fighting, movesets, different controls. Look, not that I love this, and Tyler and I had a brief conversation about how much I don't actually love if, you have to know what all the characters do, and then you also have to know 100 different move sets. That's awful on your hands, especially after like Street Fighter 2 and like the rosters just became gigantic. Awful. Hated it. But doesn't deny the importance of the game. Doesn't like it was the ultimate quarter competition between kids, and then pretty good ports became available on most consoles, and it's been a mainstay. What do you want me to say against Street Fighter 2? Is there something bigger that should be in its place? Honestly.
I mean, obviously not, Johnny. I might not even I would probably have a different outlook on arcade games in general without Street Fighter 2, because a major reason of why I even went to arcades in the 90s is because arcades still fucking existed when I was a kid because of games like Street Fighter 2. And I think Street Fighter 2 would be a major one in the early 90s. I think towards the late 90s, maybe Dance Dance Revolution kept arcades alive for another 2 years. And I think there's links to esports. I think Evo, which you could link back to Street Fighter, obviously, major esports event. And you could point to the bullshit esports events. You could point to the Space Invaders Championship. You could point to Nintendo World Championships, all these like little one-off, two-off events. But Evo is a yearly real esports event. If you ask me to name a competitive video game moment, there's the Chun-Li versus Ken, where the Ken is blocking Chun-Li's kicks and has no life left, and then does a combo and kills Chun-Li. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't know what I'm talking about?
No, I know it. I thought you were just
I'm just
speaking,
saying,
I thought you were speaking to the audience.
That is like an esports moment. That is like a cultural moment in competitive video games. And that's not Street Fighter 2, to be clear. I think it's Street Fighter 3. But like that is a moment that does not exist without this game. It is obviously an incredibly important game. Like that is so like this is something I don't think I think about enough, but like that is a spectator video game moment. Street Fighter 2 is a game that people would go to arcades and watch people be good at in a competitive sense. Like, the idea of watching a game now is so common. Like, Twitch has made that very common, but, like, no one would watch a video game in the 90s. And I don't think that's, like, something exclusively attributable to Street Fighter 2, but I think it is part of the story of making video games a watchable thing.
Yeah, so I mean, there was like you always had like when someone was good in arcade at whatever their game was, like people would crowd around because they were going to do the cool thing. But Street Fighter, not only did they watch it, they also studied it to like see what people did to get like it was just a different level of what was happening before. It just took it to the next phase, which again, you can attribute to its importance. And also, it was just the perfect competition game. You could just put two people against each other, no bullshit. They line up, they fight, easy, quick. Like, again, no bullshit. It doesn't take very long, which is perfect because, like, if you're watching, say, StarCraft or something and, like, a match is going, like, how long do those matches sometimes go or any of these other games? Street Fighter, in and out, like, a minute and a half per round. It's perfect.
Don't diss live StarCraft. I watched live StarCraft for a long time. That's the most interesting game. I know.
Yeah, you watched it for a long time, but you've only seen 3 StarCraft matches, is my point.
I'm sure people would argue like, oh, you really need to understand the depth of the combos and the frame perfect inputs to really understand what's happening on this screen. It's like, no, I'm watching people punch each other and the life bars are going down.
Sure, they could, and the fact that someone could just speaks to the depth of the game itself. And now, like, look, the fighting genre has become crazy. It's also, since that inception, a genre that was not popular necessarily became a genre and is now very popular. And look, Street Fighter movies, Mortal Kombat movies, look at all these things that exist because of Street Fighter.
Also, Johnny, I'm just gonna say, we've already mentioned it, but Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 2 is the biggest turnaround in video game history, from a game that no one cares about to a game that everyone cares about.
Yeah.
Like, people, you could pick the most obscure bullshit game, like, this isn't obscure, but like Mario Bros, like, who really cares about the first Mario Bros when you put it in the context of like Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Odyssey, all the other amazing Mario games that came out. There's someone who cares about Mario Brothers, and they will be like, oh, but Mario Brothers, it's this interesting game.
It's got a cabinet. People buy it, put it in their house. It's added in other games. Like, they still add it. They're like, oh, here's a fun addition. Play some Mario Brothers. And you're like, yeah, I guess I could play that a little bit.
In the mid 2010s, when I was going to like barcades a lot to play pinball, there was a guy who would come in and he would just like max out super like Mario Brothers. He would sit at the cabinet on a quarter for like 45 minutes. But yeah, there's not a single person on Earth that will defend any part of Street Fighter 1. It's not balanced. It's not fun. There's like 2 characters. It's Ken and Ryu. Street Fighter 1 sucks balls. Everyone knows it. And then they made Street Fighter 2, which is like one of the most amazing fighting games to this day.
Yeah, I mean,
all right. I don't think we need to defend it anymore.
And which version do you buy? It would be cool to get the arcade cabinet. But if you weren't doing that, I think the Super Nintendo or the original Street Fighter 2 for Super Nintendo would be a good one. Though that is not the best version of Street Fighter 2 to play, but it is the original. What you really want is I Am 8-Bit did a version of it, and you might get a glow-in-the-dark cartridge that may set your house on fire. So buy that one.
Yes. So the glow-in-the-dark Blanca Green I Am 8-Bit Street Fighter 2 officially endorsed as the best Street Fighter collectible.
To set your house on fire.
All right, Johnny, I don't want to end with this one, so I'm going to say it before I have to end with it. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I'm going to say this is probably somewhat of a controversial pick because... like, obviously we went through, like, looking at, like, online lists to compare our list. I don't think I saw a single list that put Oblivion on there.
No, I did not.
And so there's 2 main reasons for this. So, yes, obviously, huge upgrades over Morrowind, all that, and just open world design in general. Like, NPCs had, like, their own paths and stuff in Morrowind and day-night cycles and all that. And I think Oblivion did take all that kind of stuff to the next level. But there's really 2 things in Oblivion that are the most important things that puts it to top 10 status for me. I think the quest design and world design of Oblivion is like a turning point in how games are designed in general. I think when I go back to a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox game, I get it's surprising how gamey a lot of them are. Like, a lot of games still have individual levels that you play through. And a lot of times when I'm playing like a PlayStation 2 game, I'll get a game over. And like the concept of getting a game over and just having to restart a game, that doesn't exist anymore. And that's not fully due to Oblivion. That's kind of due to the Xbox 360 era and beyond in general. But the design of Oblivion was to put you in a world, and it has sort of junk food quest design where it will just give you a bunch of shit to do, and then you follow the quest marker and do it, and you're not actively like leaning forward and like trying to play video games so you don't die, and I gotta get the high score, I gotta beat this level. You're just sitting back for 6 hours and just running through the Cyrodiil and just following the quest marker. Talk to a guy, like nothing. You might for 6 hours, your blood pressure, your heartbeat does not raise past its resting heartbeat because you're just sitting there exploring stuff. There's this junk food element to it where it's just like I could go in here and just spend 4 hours and like I might have progressed nothing, but I'm just here to dick around for 4 hours. Design to it that I think has translated to a lot of newer games. I think a big appeal of like the Dark Souls series is people like the fact that it has had more of an old school design that is a little bit harder than most games are now. Like Dark Souls isn't even like that nuts in its design or its difficulty. It's more just that it's not the way games are designed anymore. I just think Oblivion was a real turning point in that. So
tell me what Oblivion does that World of Warcraft didn't do 2 years before it.
Okay, you're going to go into this. That is so...
because Oblivion is like playing an MMO, but not.
So, yes, I don't know where we can actually attribute this to, but yes, fucking World of Warcraft in 2004 did this exact thing. Even to a greater extent, because how many World of Warcraft quests are there? 60,000? Like
something. It's
World
crazy.
of Warcraft, you don't even read the text in World of Warcraft. In Oblivion, like, you might read the text, you might like skim it, but World of Warcraft, it's like click exclamation point, go to spiders, kill 30 spiders, go back to quest giver. And yes, I agree that the quest design in World of Warcraft absolutely has that junk food element to it. I think it feels very much like the purpose of that is to keep you locked into a subscription with sort of like an endless gameplay loop that you have going on in World of Warcraft. So I still think there's an element to how Oblivion is one of the main games that popularizes that format in like a single player console game, going back to bringing things to the masses. But it's so funny that we already had this discussion when we were talking about the episode, and you brought up how World of Warcraft did this exact thing, Tyler. What the fuck are you talking about? But it's already on our list, so you know what?
All right. But I have you for your second point. Your second point, I think, is super important and not where I think a lot of people would go. So why don't you tell me the other thing that it did?
Johnny, fucking horse armor.
Fucking horse armor, man.
When you, going back to those through lines, you trace the through line of downloadable content. It goes down, straight down to a $2.99 purchase. You could buy armor for your horse in
And the
Oblivion.
Man, the internet
fucking
outrage.
exploded. They could not believe the audacity because, like, even from a value standpoint, Elder Scrolls Oblivion is a fucking enormous game with, you know, hundreds of hours of gameplay. If you're really gonna, like, run around and dick around and just live that life of leaning back and following the quest arrows or collecting every cheese wheel in the game, whatever you do in Elder Scrolls games. And then for a 20th of the price of this amazing huge world, you get a cosmetic item for your horse. You know, a horse, I don't even use a horse that much in Oblivion when I play Oblivion. So it's such a minor, stupid thing. And, like, no one would even blink twice if they saw that now, because microtransactions have become so common. I don't even know what the first, like, actual microtransactions are. It doesn't matter, because horse armor in Oblivion might as well be the first microtransaction. And go into, like, mobile games, pay to win, free to play. Like, microtransactions have just become, I think they're a bigger part of video game monetization now than the actual price of video games themselves. I think that's a relatively recent development that, like, DLC and microtransactions are a bigger profit margin than video games.
Yeah.
Comes back to Oblivion.
Yep.
Kinda.
And that is super important. I'll fight you on the other stuff. I will not fight you on that at all. Good reason to be there.
Hold on.
Not a reason I love.
I want to see how wrong I am about this.
What?
Let's see. I'm just going to Wikipedia to get a general overview of microtransactions. There's like Maple Story and Dungeon Fighter Online. There's like online games, sure. They had microtransactions, Habbo Hotel. Okay,
Yeah,
and then it goes to Oblivion. Oh, Second Life. All this online shit. And then Oblivion did it for single player. It was so egregious in a single player game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't even show this horse armor off to anyone.
Nope. And it was 2006, so your mobile phone camera probably sucked. So
yeah. I mean, I would make fun of you for having horse armor. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
if you bought it, also it wasn't even $2.99. It was $2.50. $2.50.
Yeah.
I'm saying that as like a that's nothing kind of price now, because like obviously cosmetics can cost so much now, but like people were up in arms about $2.50 back then.
They surely were. It was so big it made news like regular people news.
Yes, it did. Also, it was what was the expansion pack? Knights of the Nine, the expansion pack. I think they gave you horse armor in that, and I remember looking at that. I'm like, oh, that's quite a value now.
Yeah. Whoa, that's $2.50 right there, baby. Yeah, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
All right.
Oblivion. It's important for a lot of reasons. Some good, some bad, or maybe all bad. Also, for all the shit I give Oblivion, like I don't like the kind of lean back and do pointless quests that some games put. I say this as a RuneScape player, so I'm coming from 0 point of authority. I don't like that design element of games, but like Oblivion's still like 10 out of 10. That game's fucking awesome. All right.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I mean, I'm not going to keep telling the pants story, but yeah, fucking love that game.
Yeah, believe it or not, Oblivion, you could get it for like $5 on Xbox 360.
Oh,
the
weird.
collector's edition comes with kind of a nicer fold-out box. It's like $15 to $20. You really made it. If you bought the collector's edition thinking like, oh yeah, the Elder Scrolls 4, a game that's like launching the quote-unquote next generation. Oh yeah, if I buy the collector's edition, this will be a good investment for the future because everyone's gonna want to collect this. Yeah, it's worth like $25 now. Good investment there. It comes with a metal coin that's usually missing, so make sure you get the coin.
Yeah.
It does not add that much value, but you got to get it.
Right.
Also, the first print on Xbox 360, maybe PC, I don't know. It has a T ESRB rating. I guess this would be on PC as well, because physical PC games still existed. T ESRB rating that was quickly changed to an M for some bullshit reason, I'm sure. Well, God forbid your 15-year-old play Oblivion. So if you want to be picky about sealed copies, because these will all be available complete in box, make sure you get that T ESRB rating.
Okay. Tyler, I have 2 games left, and I'm not sure which one to pick. So
Johnny,
is there
let's get this episode over with. How long?
Okay.
We're already 2 hours in. Come on.
Okay. Which one do you want to talk about? I got 2 here.
I'm not looking at your list, so I don't know.
Oh, fine. Well, I can't decide.
You put Myst on your list?
Yeah.
All right, talk about Myst.
Well, I put StarCraft on my list too, and I think StarCraft is more important. Yeah.
All right, we should have not told people our lists and made people guess which one is which.
Oh, we should have.
Yeah. Wow. Like
Yeah.
I am definitely the bigger Myst fan of the two of us.
Yes. I'm gonna go with StarCraft. Just
oh my fucking god. Okay.
Okay, I'm just going with it because of the competition scene and how I think StarCraft is super important to what it did for, RTSs here in America. But like as a global competition, like everything it did, not that's particular to StarCraft 1, but all the advancements it led to and how it's played globally, and it's a very competitive game, and it's like a stadium full of esports people freaking out about it. I don't understand how StarCraft got to this level, and I can't speak with a lot of authority about it, except for the fact that when I was working for a company that was making an RTS, I had to learn a lot about the intricacies of StarCraft. That was the game everyone pointed me to. They said, this is the best, most important one. We need to do things that this game did well. So find out what it was, like from a theoretical perspective, like not actually playing it, but like reading up about it, what people said. So yeah, that's why StarCraft makes my list. I'm not going to go into it. I don't have recommendations on the right versions to buy because Tyler knows it better. Just in my heart of hearts, I feel like this is a game that is important enough that other big developers were saying, this is the most important one. Go look at it. When I was a young man working in games, then I felt like that should make the list.
Okay. I mean, I will, I'm a big StarCraft fan. Some people will argue for Warcraft because they're wrong. Some people will argue for like Command and Conquer. The fact that StarCraft has 3 balanced, completely different races already puts it over any of its competition it had in the 90s. But the fact that they were so balanced and yet played so differently is just like an amazing feat to StarCraft in just pure gameplay sense. I mean, obviously, there are other stupid. You could say Command and Conquer and Warcraft are like foundational RTS games. You could say like Dune 2 is a foundational RTS game. So everyone knows that StarCraft is the one that everyone points back to, which is why when you were working on an RTS, they pointed you back to StarCraft.
Yeah.
Going back to the competition scene, I'm thinking, but like from a competitive video game sense, StarCraft 2 was the only game where I was like actively watching like weekly competitions for games and like watching like live broadcasts of video games. There was like a couple of years where I was really into the StarCraft 2 scene, which is very similar to StarCraft 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, there's 3 collector's editions, one for each of the races. They each have a different big ass face on the box, or you could just get the regular version of StarCraft. I'm sure it is not expensive because it sold very, very well, Johnny.
Excellent news. I knew you'd know about StarCraft, so I'm like, I'm not putting any info here.
My favorite anecdote is that I work with this Korean woman at work, and we were in a conversation, and it came up like I'm a video game guy, believe it or not, Johnny. And I asked her, does she play video games? And she's like, oh no, I don't play video games. And then sometime later, the game StarCraft came up, and I'm like, I thought you don't play video games. And she's like, oh, well, StarCraft. Everyone plays StarCraft.
But that's what I mean. That's like, it goes back to my point about, like people being in silos and like what people consider games. Like, it's funny, even internally, she's like, oh, it's not a video game. It's StarCraft.
I mean, you could say this about any game when you get into it. Like, I'm sure like people could talk about how, just Street Fighter Third Strike is the deepest game ever. But the aspect of like, overarching management of how you're building your base and how you're expanding the macro element of StarCraft down to the individual unit management of like in a battle that you have to like stop focusing on like building buildings and shit and start focusing on like, oh, my Marines are fighting Zerglings. And then it becomes like a very intense, almost like a fighting game where like you need really quick reactions, you need really quick thinking and strategy to get through battles. If you suck at StarCraft and you just select your army and select attack the enemy base, like you're not playing StarCraft. But it is like maybe the game with the highest skill ceiling. Like there is such a mental and physical element to playing StarCraft that I think it might be the hardest game of all time. Also because you're playing humans, like the metagame constantly changes. I don't know. It might be it might be the chess of video games.
Okay. That's a pretty big endorsement.
I mean, because like, what are you doing in like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike? Like there's like, I'm sure there's tons of different strategies in how you operate, but like the main thing is like point at head and click button, right? You can't really play StarCraft like that. All right. You have anything else to say about StarCraft?
I really don't.
All right, Johnny, let's just talk about the most important game of all time real quick. Doom, I'm getting too tired to really hype up about how Doom is the best game ever made, but Doom is like one of the top two, if not number one. I don't know. I might put Doom above Super Mario Brothers.
Oof.
Obviously, it's a landmark FPS. Obviously, every FPS can tie itself into Doom and Wolfenstein 3D, but Doom adds verticality to the genre. It has complex level design with keys and doors. There are small levels that are focused on killing a lot of enemies. There are big, expansive levels that are focused on exploration, like fucking deathmatch. What are we talking about? We're talking about Street Fighter. We're talking about Call of Duty. We're talking about StarCraft, like multiplayer deathmatch. It's not the technical first deathmatch game ever. You can go back to Maze War in 1974, but fuck that. Real network deathmatch. This was like a cause problems at the workplace type event. Like, people were playing Doom multiplayer at work because it was so fucking awesome. Johnny, going back to, like, how microtransactions are, like, the secretly most important thing that Oblivion did. User-generated content. Doom had level editors.
Sure they did.
Doom had WAD files. Doom had mods. You could just make an entire new set of levels for Doom. No, it is not the first game ever to have a level editor. It's one of the first like fucking awesome games to have a level editor, and there is so much content, and it came out just before the internet became huge, so people were sharing so much Doom content on the internet.
It's true.
Johnny, everybody knows it's fucking Doom. Also, I just want to say there are two games on this list that are like video games about the fucking devil, and that's metal as shit. It is so, I don't know. If you think of movies and you look at like what are the best movies, and it's like Bicycle Thieves. Oh, it's a movie about like a poor Italian guy who is worn down and eventually has to steal a bicycle, and it's such a sad moment. It's like you describe that to someone and they're like, wow, I don't want to watch that. you describe Doom, and it's like, you go to fucking hell and you murder Satan, and there's like demons trying to murder you, so you take a chainsaw to their fucking face, and you have a guy's head at the bottom of your screen, and as you're getting shot by the shotgun demons, you're getting progressively bloodier, and there's heads on spikes and upside down crosses, and Doom is crazy. It's so cool that like one of the most important games of all time is as metal as Doom is. And the music it's just fucking heavy metal, ridiculous MIDI music.
So Doom's pretty
John,
good,
do you agree
huh?
that Doom is fucking awesome?
Yeah, Doom is awesome.
All right.
What do you want me to say? Doom is awesome. I'm not here to. All of those are great points. I'm not taking Doom off the list.
Doom is first releases of Doom were mail order only, which makes them by default cool. We probably should have brought this up in the mail order.
Oh shit!
What were we
doing? What are we doing with our lives?
It comes in it's like a small thin box, and it has an addendum in it, which is a little photocopy sheet of paper that I don't even know what it tells you, but make sure you have that in addition to the manual. The first release, I believe the box is the same for all the mail order releases. The first release is 1.1. So the discs will say version 1.1 on them, and the back of the manual is black. The back of the later manuals is like a red gooey thing. So you want to make sure you have the first print manual to go with your first print copy of the game.
Mm.
If you want the rarest versions of Doom, though, there was a 5.25-inch floppy version. There's a 1.1 and a 1.2. I think like maybe 1.2 5.25-inch floppy might be like the rarest version of Doom, but I don't really know. They're both so rare. I want one. Someone got a big floppy disk version of Doom, hit me up. That would be cool to have. If you don't, that would cost you like $500 to $1,000 for a mail order Doom. When it went to retail, it was the Ultimate Doom. They added another episode to it, and that's easy to get. Although I'm sure it's still probably expensive now. Johnny, how much is the Ultimate Doom? $75, $100? I don't know. You can buy that too.
You could. You shouldn't.
I think all the console versions are kind of bad in their own way. Doom is great because for some reason it was so popular, and then all the console versions like were rushed and just like have problems. And they all have like unique problems, and like you can go into the development stories of the console ports, and it was just like, yeah, they made me port Doom to 3DO, but they only gave me 6 weeks to do it, even though it's like fucking Doom, and we should have probably a really good version of Doom on 3DO. If you put a gun to my head and forced me to buy a console port, I would say probably the PlayStation port is the best of like the 90s ports. And I think it's interesting because the PlayStation version, does it not have music or has very ambient music, and it gives it like a creepy vibe. So I think that's neat.
Okay. I'll accept neat. That
right.
I mean, that's very not Doom, but sure.
What, not having the Doom music?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I agree. I don't think there are versions that like just don't have music. I think the PlayStation version has music. It's just like way more ambient and different. I don't know. It's a different vibe to Doom, so maybe it's worth playing. But yeah, just play it on PC. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
the new versions are good too. Like
console.
the Switch version is apparently the Unity port, which is like a really good port of Doom. So maybe the modern versions are good too. But come on, if you're gonna buy one, get one of the ones from the 90s at least.
All right,
that's my.
And that's it. That's it for our list, right?
Yeah, done? Definitely no more. You're definitely not going to put Myst on here, right?
No. Could have though. I think we could have.
That was a close one.
Oof.
Wait, no, I've got another one too. What are you talking about?
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were done. I thought you said we were done.
We're not done.
You told me.
Johnny, just talk about Myst. I can't believe you're putting Myst in your top 10.
No, now I'm not going to talk about it at all.
No, do you own a copy of Myst?
Of course I do.
Okay. I mean, that's just because you're 40-something years old and everyone of your age like has a copy of Myst somewhere. Oh, yeah, I bought a Packard Bell in 1994 and I just
literally
came with
they were
Myst.
issued. Literally, they were issued with PCs.
Yeah, yes.
Literally. It's not like people say, oh, it's like they just gave them away. They literally just gave them away. It was ridiculous. Everybody played Myst. For me, I played in 1995, and I did not play computer games, nor did I own a computer. I was just at a friend's house, and she was like, oh, I have this computer game. And I was like, okay, what is it? And she's like, oh, this is Myst. And then we played through and we beat Myst. That's just like what we did for the next 2 days. Myst was everywhere. Everywhere had it. That's what I'm saying. It was so big. Everywhere had it. Everyone got it. Every mom and dad got, because it wasn't too hard. It didn't ask you to do too much. You could find out. There was like guides and stuff to get you past. Yeah, people got stuck a lot. But everybody I know played this. Like the parents played it. The kids played it. It was like, isn't it one of the best selling computer games of all time?
It was the best selling game of all time when it was released.
Yeah. So I think that's enough. And, you know, I don't have strong points because it didn't really create a genre or anything. It just did its thing. It existed in its thing and just became the biggest. And like, as big as it was, yeah, there was a lot of clones that came out of it. Like the end of the 90s into the early 2000s was a lot of like Myst style games, but its influence, I feel, died out pretty quickly. If that's, unless you disagree with that. I think just PC games changed in general, and that didn't really translate over to consoles very well, which was a sticking point for it.
So there's a little bit of the that Diablo effect where like I see some things, some aspects of Myst, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like Myst.
Oh,
like when I played The Witness drops you off on an island and gives you no direction. And just like that aspect of like, oh, I'm dropped into a world with nothing to do and I just have to go and like figure stuff out. Oh, it's just like Myst.
And some of the puzzles, like the puzzle types, like from Myst, like have carried through, but like just being a straight clone is not something that's carried through.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of Myst clones. Like if there is like some new Myst games, but like they're clearly throwbacks. They're like, oh yeah, remember Myst? We made another one of those.
Yep.
Which is kind of surprising that you're putting it in the top 10 for that reason to me.
I said I didn't think it was that great, and I felt stressed out about that one.
Okay.
I think this is game 11 on my list anyway, so that's, like, what are you doing here?
Oh, okay. Well, that's your fault. What the hell? All right, yeah, Myst. First released on Macintosh, and you want the version that has a film strip in the top left. There's some kind of sticker in the top left of every version of Myst. But the first versions of Myst came in a 2-piece box rather than just like a normal cardboard box. And the first Mac version has a film strip in the top left.
Woo.
And you can get it for a small premium, probably $75. I don't know, I'm making that up. Probably if you get lucky, you'll get it for $30.
Or just kind of disagree with a thrift store.
I mean, obviously there's cultural touchstone things that Myst has. There are obviously adventure game advancements that Myst has. I think the way Myst is designed is interesting because they very specifically designed it like, we want you to figure out these puzzles as if you were really there. Like, we want you to flip a switch and then just like walk around and figure out what that switch did. And like, there's a very specific way you're supposed to approach the world of Myst puzzles that has completely evaporated from games today. So that's a problem for this list, I will say. Because immediately I think of like playing a modern Naughty Dog game, and like, if you don't figure out a puzzle within like literally 1 minute, you're probably an idiot.
Okay, that's mean.
I mean,
that's just mean.
I'm sorry. Name a puzzle in The Last of Us that's not like, oh, I pushed the thing. I pressed X on the thing.
I mean, that's every puzzle on The Legend of Zelda. Push the thing.
I saw there's a YouTube video that breaks down Ocarina of Time and just like why everything you do in that game does not matter and is not real gameplay. They're like, oh, you're in a room and you got a bow and there's an eye and you shoot the eye really great game design. Like, that's a puzzle. Wow, you figured it out. And then, like, they just show that same puzzle being used in 7 different rooms. And they're like, wow, this is really groundbreaking game design here. This was a real puzzle. And it really made me feel bad that it's my favorite game of all time.
Good. Anyways, that's it on this. That's our list. Do you want to talk about these other stuff?
Banger. The most important game of all time.
You have another one? Wow.
Minecraft, Johnny. It's the most popular game of all time. Johnny, you might say it's a culturally defining piece of media. More than Myst, because video games as a medium are more popular now than they were in 1993.
So this is our top 11 list.
No, I picked 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Fuck. What are we scrapping? I'm scrapping wizardry. I don't know.
How about Minecraft?
Dude, I don't know. Minecraft is not getting scrapped. There is no fucking way. Minecraft is like, it defines a generation. Like, I don't know. Name a person who hasn't played Minecraft who is in their 0s, 10s, 20s, 30s. I'm not saying 40s because you're going to say, I haven't played Minecraft. My friends don't
I've played Minecraft. Of course I've played.
I know. Minecraft is, Johnny, it's one of the best games ever made, but that's not why it's on my list. I think it's also, is it the best selling game ever made? Like, there's some fucky ducky stuff where they like, Wikipedia combines every Tetris game into one thing called Tetris.
Yeah, but all these games do that. And like, all these lists are bullshit. Everything, as we always say, it just depends how you count.
All right. Johnny, I don't even need to. Everything became a fucking open world crafting game after Minecraft. Like, talk about a game that spawned clones. But like, I wrote down this example. Like, you think of the crafting system in Breath of the Wild, super popular Nintendo game. Nintendo, a company that likes blazing their own path and not copying what other people are doing. Just the fact that has a simple cooking and crafting interface. You just open up your inventory grid, you click a couple things, and it's happening. Video games before Minecraft, when I think of their crafting systems, like, I think of standing in World of Warcraft at an anvil, watching my crafting meter go up while like crafting is kind of happening. Or I think of archaic old dungeon crawlers where if you knew the recipe, like you could like maybe like take reagents and like learn a spell and move runes around and do some crafting. But Minecraft is just like you pop things into your inventory and you take things out, and like just the simplicity of crafting in Minecraft has definitely had an impact on how crafting has become super popular in games. But that's like nothing. That's like 0% of Minecraft's influence. Minecraft's a fucking indie game. And yes, I think Xbox 360 in general was a really big thing that popularized people actually buying independent video games besides like weird small stuff on PC. Minecraft became the biggest game of all time and was an indie game. And now, like, look at the fucking indie gaming scene since games, you know, like Braid and like Minecraft. Even beyond that, Johnny, I've been hyping up Android. I've been hyping up iOS. I've been hyping up mobile as being like the most important shit in the world. And Minecraft, I would say, is primarily not a mobile game. Fucking, it might be. I don't even know. Like, is Minecraft more popular on phones than it is on PC and consoles? I'd have to look at the numbers. Either way, this is our first game on the list that is like truly a mobile experience where like you can give a 6-year-old an iPad and they'll just go nuts on Minecraft because it's such a fucking phenomenon. People will play it with shitty touchscreen controls even though it sucks. Yeah, it's Johnny. I mean, it's Minecraft.
Okay.
The only problem is I think this is kind of a similar situation to Donkey Kong. There is no good version of Minecraft you could buy. The early version of Minecraft is the PC version, which was a Java download client. There's no physical version on PC. I think even to this day, there's no physical version. They just like never released it on DVD. There's like, no, fuck you. Go to the website and download our client.
That's funny.
The one that like the sealed people have started hyping is Minecraft Xbox 360 edition. There is a first print for that comes with an Xbox Live trial. and that has gone, sealed for some ridiculous amounts of money. Pretty hard to find even complete in box. Man, I look at that and it is like, it's not exciting to me because that is just not the version of the game. And like, this is such like the game for me. Like this, like, it's not like top 10 game of all time for me, but man, it feels pretty close to that. Like Desert Island game you play forever. I think a lot of people would probably choose Minecraft, especially and people younger than me. I think people who grew up with this are like,
it's like, yeah, it's
all agreeing. But then there's also this element of people younger than me. They're like, you guys didn't put Fortnite on the list. What the fuck?
Just pick WoW and then never have, nothing to do again.
All right. That's our list, Johnny.
Okay, we did it.
You behind anything? You playing anything? I'm skipping the questions today. It's late.
We're skipping. It's super late. Sorry, and this is my fault. I apologize to you. What am I buying? What am I playing? Sorry, no questions. Hey, Tyler, I have not really been playing any video games right now. It's getting a little boring to tell you. I played a little bit of The Last of Us. I've just been progressing as the episodes progress.
The game is like The Last of Us 1. That game is like not as long as The Last of Us 2.
No, I just sit down for like 30 minutes and like play the parts through the episode. That's it.
Okay.
Just like going on. Just like see where it turns and where it's, where it's very different and where it's very samey. So that's it. What did I buy? Man, I have some bangers. Are you ready for a list of super bangers?
Oh, yes. I hope there's some sealed GBA games in here.
There is definitely a sealed GBA game in there. Oh my God, Tyler. It is. You're going to love this one. Are you ready? Are you ready?
No.
You're not ready. Okay, I'll wait.
No, all right, let's go.
Okay. Scourge. You ever heard of Scourge? Hive? Do you know this game? It's weird because this is one of these games that came out right as the DS came out, and the GBA version really got panned.
Wait, this game has a version on GBA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen this game before. Yeah. I didn't know it was a GBA game.
Yeah, so it's a GBA game too, but no one liked it on the GBA, but they did like it on the DS. So something about the controls were bad on the GBA, and the DS was making use of its controlling system. Anyways, it's a game I like kind of had on my list to like go pick up, and I saw it for a reasonable price and I bought it. That's the thing I did.
Cool.
Because this is the what have you been buying stuff. Hey, some other exciting stuff I bought. Have you heard of a show called Codename Kids Next Door?
I absolutely have. I believe that game comes with a trading card, Johnny.
It does. I bought the trading card because I was missing it.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah. Woo! I was working on my GameCube stuff, so I was like, oh. And then I bought Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events for the GameCube with the movie ticket because my version had a torn movie ticket, and I did not like that.
Oh my God, you had a torn movie ticket, and you couldn't live with that?
So I also, we were talking in that episode about, in a previous episode about mail away stuff, that Thousand Arms soundtrack multimedia CD. I bought that because, hey, it was $15, so why not? And then a game that I thought I got, but did not. It did not arrive from the seller, and I had to file a claim, was Angry Birds Trilogy for the Wii. So I bought that. Very exciting.
Oh, Angry Birds, a game that missed our list. Man, mobile phenomenon, Angry Birds.
But I will tell you, it was on a lot of the lists we read, Tyler.
I could go with the importance of Angry Birds. I mean, it's not going to beat, like, Sim City or Civilization. Like, there's so many games.
Angry Birds over Mysts? Get the fuck out. That's it. That's what I bought, and that's what I played. Tyler, what about you?
I'm kind of playing the same old, some Divinity with Ada. What did I buy, Johnny? I got Time Traveler on DVD, the Sega arcade game. I've been eyeballing this for a while because it's usually kind of expensive. It comes up for sale, but people want like $50 for it. And I got it for like $15, which felt like a better deal to me. I have never actually played a Time Traveler cabinet. Time Traveler, like this really weird thing. You talk about collectible arcade games. Time Traveler's like this $10,000 arcade game or something. It is nuts. But it's just a weird white cabinet with like a dome on top of it.
Yeah, it's like a pinball machine. like in its shape
Sure,
and
yeah,
size.
it's similar to that. You like kind of look down at it,
Yeah.
and then it's got like some objects in the dome, and it projects 3D stuff. Like the game is played in like this 3D kind of like hologram format. I never played it, so I don't actually know anything about it. But I'm gonna see how this DVD version plays. It comes with a pair of 3D glasses, so this will definitely be in our 3D glasses episode, Johnny.
Excellent news.
And then I also got a copy of Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, signed by Sid Meier.
You did it!
Alpha Centauri, probably Sid Meier's most popular game outside the Civilization series. It is basically Civilization in space. And it's fucking rad. Play Alpha Centauri if you like strategy games. Honestly, if you like strategy games, you don't need me to recommend Sid Meier games. So what the fuck am I talking about?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
Okay. Whoa. All right. Johnny, we're going on a tangent here. I know it's late. My brain was just operating on autopilot, and I Googled Sid Meier, and I ended up on his list of games that he made. And in my brain, Formula One Racing is the first Sid Meier game. It's an Atari computer game, I think. I've had a save search for it forever. It never comes up. The first game on this list, 1 year before Formula One Racing, Meier was paid to make a game for a bank with a piggy bank catching falling coins called Bank Game 1. Someone really digging into the archives to find like contract work for a bank for a game that was never existed or was released. Love it.
Bank Game 1, try and find it. You're not a real fan.
He wrote a Space Invaders clone in assembly, and there are 2 sources that say a local store bought 5 or 10 copies. Yes, that is worth being in the list of games developed by Sid Meier. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, that's all I got. I've been, let's focus on cool stuff. Neither of these, like Time Traveler was something on my want list for a while. Just because it's a neat.
It's a unique thing, yeah.
And I've been like casually collecting some autographs, especially like alive people who their autograph does not command a huge premium. This signed copy of Alpha Centauri was like not super expensive. I have Sid Meier's book signed. Now I have a game signed, so I'm a little bit happier. Signatures for video game stuff generally not very expensive. Like some Japanese guys, especially Shigeru Miyamoto. Very expensive autographs, but other than that, like you can get some pretty cool guys, especially from like the Atari era. Like no one values their autographs at all. So
no,
good stuff.
I'm buying some autographs too, but not for video games. I've been trying to find a good autograph of the guy who did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The not the author, but the illustrator,
Ooh.
Stephen Gamble. So I've been trying to get some of his stuff. And then I also am very fond of Edward Gorey. And I'm trying to find, he like used to do these little illustrations on postcards, like out of his museum, and very hard to find, but I've been wanting to get like one of those, but I might just have to settle for an autograph book. And his autographs don't command like a super ton of money, because he did so much stuff. Like, I don't know if you know much about Gorey, but he's awesome.
I absolutely don't. I know the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
That's Stephen Gamble.
Oh, I'm sorry. What were you talking about?
Edward Gorey and Stephen Gamble are different people. Do you know what Masterpiece Theater is?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the intro to Masterpiece Theater?
Yes.
So Edward Gorey did that. Okay, but he also did a fuck ton of books and has been around forever. And he also illustrated a bunch of books for other people.
But I mean, if he did books, like people sign first edition books. So if you just need to like get something, like you should eventually be able to get that, right?
Oh yeah, no. You can get Gorey. He was such a prolific illustrator. He signed so many things. Like you can find his autograph. It's not that hard. But I wanted one of his because he's equally famous for being an illustrator, maybe even more so than being an author. But all of his books he illustrated, so it goes hand in hand. So I kind of wanted an illustration. An autographed illustration would be the pinnacle. Sure.
I mean, I don't know how hard that is to get. I I have something kind of similar. My favorite video game soundtrack of all time is Subterranea for the Sega Genesis by Jesper Kid. And
That's
Jesper
weird.
Kid, I don't know when he got famous, but he did the Assassin's Creed soundtrack, and I think that's probably what he's most famous for. So signed things sometimes come up, but it'll be like sheet music to Assassin's Creed. And you know what? Fuck Assassin's Creed, Johnny.
We are on the same page.
But he's like a Danish composer. He like lives in whatever Danish people live in. Denmark, probably. So I like it's similar to the problem with getting Japanese autographs, where it's just like, I don't live there. Like, I will never have an opportunity to find this person at an event. And no one is going to have a fucking signed copy of Subterranea. So
No.
I'm so sad that like I could get his autograph, but it's going to be on something I don't want. Someone get me in touch with Jesper Kid. And like, if it was a smaller thing, like there's sometimes these smaller like Atari and Commodore developers, and you could literally just go like friend them on Facebook. And they're just like excited to talk with someone who's like still interested in a game they made 30 years ago. But now Jesper Kid, because he is this like big composer who's worked on games like Assassin's Creed, and he's like a huge celebrity composer guy now. So I'm never going to get his autograph by fucking friending him on Facebook.
It's always
God
worth a
damn
shot.
it.
Also, make sure you're looking like at different eBays in Europe.
I mean, even if it comes up, I don't even have a save search for this, because if something comes up, it's going to be like Assassin's Creed or Hitman or one of the bigger games he's worked on. Like, I mean, Subterranea is like one of the first games he ever composed. Like, no one's gonna get a signed Subterranea thing. What I need to find him at a convention.
Yes.
But I don't know that someone like him is going to show up at a video game convention. So I don't know.
Or just mail it to his house.
Just mail it and see. See, the thing is, Subterranea, that's like a $5 game. Like, I could just keep mailing him them until like he mails me one back.
Just like that, and like a $20 bill for shipping. You're like, please.
Yeah. Dude won a BAFTA. Does that make you a somebody?
It does.
All right. What a cool guy.
Okay. And I think that's it for our show. Hey, Tyler, where can they find you?
I think I've got like 15 unread Instagram messages. I'm so sorry.
Jesus
I get stressed
Christ.
when I
What is
see
wrong?
that, and then I put off responding to them. But you can find me on the Instagram and Video Game Sage and Discord. I'm Default Gen, Default GEN.
I apologize for your rudeness. Read those messages, bro.
I know. I get stressed. I feel like sometimes I get like put into a conversation like immediately when I respond, and it's like, oh no, I'm doing something. No, this was supposed to be like a like just a quick transaction.
No, like sometimes I forget, like I'll read it and I'm like, okay, I'll come back to that. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh my God, I'm an asshole. I never messaged them back. And then they message me like a year later about something else. And I'm like, oh my God, I am such a cretin. I'm sorry. I never responded to your message. I meant to. Anyways.
I don't know Johnny's excuse, but I am a millennial, meaning like you ring the doorbell and I like make sure that all the curtains are closed so no one knows I'm home, and I'm kind of similar to that with responding to online messages.
I look at my Nest camera to see if it's worthy of me getting up.
Okay. It never is. They're always
it's always some guy who wants to pitch me solar.
Yeah, have you ever heard about solar? No, I'm not a solicitor. I'm going to pretend I'm with the power company, even though I'm not.
And,
Do you have Duke?
But, the guy who came up to me, he caught me as I was leaving for work. He's like,
fuck, I had that happen once.
he's like, I was just talking to Bob and Debbie down the street, with the big German Shepherd. I'm like, dude, you think I talk to my neighbors? What do you need? Like, so that's what I am. I'm like, my neighbors around me. I know like one of my neighbors. I'm not trying to talk to neighbors. Anyways. And I live on a cul-de-sac, and I know there's not a fucking Bob and Debbie and a German Shepherd. What a fucking idiot. Anyways, he's like, oh no, I'm from your car. But you haven't heard about solar? Would you not like, I'm like, buddy, I'm going to work. Do you understand? You are at your job right now. Do you know how I can't stop you and talk to you about random nonsense? I gotta fucking leave. And JD's like, hi. I'm like, JD, just go back to the car. It's like, oh, well, could I come back at another time? I'm like, only if you want to be rejected twice.
I try not to give them shit because I know being a door-to-door salesman is probably a shitty job.
Sucks.
But man, you're interrupting me at my home.
Yeah, that's insane. Like, just to walk up to someone, oh, you fucking eating dinner? Oh, well, do you got 45 minutes of your time where I can try and make some money off your back?
Oh,
no.
God.
Well, maybe you're dumb and you haven't heard of it. That's the other thing. Like, oh, you're stupid and uninformed, so let me just tell you about it. You're like, no, dick face, I don't have time for this. I don't want to. And when I decide to, I'll Google it and I'll read up and then I'll reach out. Don't come to me.
Fucking what are the chances that, like, if I'm interested in solar, that the guy who came to my house offering to sell me solar is going to be like, oh, let me look at like what kind of system I need and what the best prices are. Like the random guy you think is going to be the guy I end up going with? Like,
no. Like, who are these people who are just like, the guy came to the door and it felt good? No, stop that.
There is so much solar around me that, I mean, it must work. That's why I get solar people every fucking week, Johnny.
Look, my energy bill is outrageous. Out-fucking-rageous. Okay, and now I charge my car at home. So, like, it's getting worse. Do I want solar? Absolutely. Do I want you to bother me in my home, especially like on a day off or something? Like interrupt my Saturday so I can come out and talk to you? No, you've angered me. I'm not likely to purchase anything from you. Like, unless you're coming to my door with candy in hand or something, like, don't. You know, like, hey, buddy, hey, fat guy, you want to buy some chips and candy? Yeah, that's probably something I would be willing to buy from someone who just came to my door. But you know what I'm not willing to do? Spend thousands of dollars just suddenly because some guy wandered up to me and then harassed me during my free time. It's ridiculous. Anyways, that's it for our show.
Yeah, whoa.
Thanks so much. Oh, before I go, hey, if you want to hear more from me, I'm on a podcast about a Harry Potter podcast called Dialogue Alley, and they did an episode on Pops. And if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, you know I got roped into collecting Pops for my wife and then having to find out and learn about them. So I then took that knowledge and shared it with their audience. And I've got a little primer that I'm going to put up here on our thing too. So you can look out for that. But if you want to hear more about Pops or just want to hear me talk some more for some reason, you can go do that. It's Dialogue Alley Podcast, and you can find them wherever you find most podcasts, just like us. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
That is our show. Errata for the show. Okay, you do play as Chris Redfield in Resident Evil, which I had forgotten. It doesn't matter. Chris Redfield's still not the person on the cover of the original Resident Evil. Also, I said Mass Effect was an American game. Of course, BioWare, Canadian developer. I'm sure someone caught that. Finally, for Minecraft, the game that wasn't supposed to be in this episode, I completely forgot, like, my entire paragraph of notes on how Minecraft has, like, enabled streaming culture. Like, I don't know if Twitch would exist without Minecraft, or it's certainly the concept of watching people play video games would be a less accepted thing without Minecraft influencing the culture there. Side note, the second most popular streaming game, or at least on YouTube, is Roblox. So if you're a 45-year-old listener and you are just learning the immense popularity and influence of Roblox, congratulations, you're officially an out-of-touch adult. Thank you to 8bit, apebit.bandcamp.com. He does our intro music. And thank you to the patrons, Richard, patron number 1 Bowden, Canadian variant alert, Chris Glidden, Nintendo World Champion, Daniel Jacksvik, high-end collector, Andrew Brim, greetings stranger, I'm not surprised to see Andrew Shelton around here, 50 Hertz is good enough for me, Andre, Brian Gupta, and Pocky and Rocky with Becky, the strictly limited super rare Bruno, coin-operated Cameron Couch, Fat Cat Collector, Chris Jackson, Stop Talking Trash About Sports Games, Chris Minoche, Chris SNK, Too Many NS Accessories, Morozek, Johnny's GBA Hookup, Coffee with Mr. Saturn, Playing with Power, Connor Strange, The Last Game You Need for the Set, Corey O'Brien, Unpunched Hangtap, Dustin Beagle, He Has Returned to Judge This City, Eric Addison, What Are You Buying, GBO Metric, Red Pyramid Thing, Jonathan Shados, Joseph Garris, he's just out there having a good time achieving his goals. Proud of you. The Nintendo Tape Archivist, Joseph Leo, The Variant Authority, Josh Byerly, The Pinball Guy, Joshua Gelb, Kevin Zylog Z80 Zaker, Lance Lord Hardstyle Z, Commander Mark Halstead, and this is his favorite store on the Citadel. The Degenerate, Matt Fall, post in the Discord right now, Michael Chiaramonte, Mint Condition, Mora Bros, Mr. CIB, get your loose Genesis carts out of here. I think he's collecting information on Genesis inserts, so send him your Genesis insert information. Jesus. Nicholas Mad Dog McCree DiMaggio, Funkoland Employee Platform Agnostic, read the Game Shark. The Famicom Box Retro Game Enthusiast, They Could Be Ghost and Goblins Twice, Shefish, Sean, The Gamer Collective, The New Craft, who can beat Mega Man without the pause trick, Previously Unknown Variant, Tim Walker, From the Internet, Todd Fisher, Can't Put Limits on Collecting, VG Collectaholic, The Millennium, Will Joe, Keep From the Zelda Variant, 0x Def Code, Previous Game Collector, Adam Kavanaugh, getting the full PS2 set because Stefan won't, all caps, what a 9.8 A++ Benji, the actually rare Bird Dog Gaming, dropping the Mario 64 Penguin off the map, Brandon Chalker, Brandon Rogers, whose favorite episode is the wrestling episode, Super Cedric Clark 2 Turbo, Christopher Piper, still shaking from what he found at Goodwill, still finding deals in 2024? Did I still find deals in 2024? Colton Murphy, did I increment your year twice? Colton Murphy, he's still finding deals. It doesn't matter what year it is. David Iserman, it's in the game. A winner is him, David Green, Derek Lauer, who made me edit this show, Don Libby, the hero of time, Double Ugly presents Double Ugly, the official game of the movie. Actually understands the Zelda timeline, Jeff Pierce, the actual Shinobi, Jasonic the Kid, Jeff the Game Boy Farris, He Is Error, Jeff Russell, Jeremy Jarvis, here for the Pog Talk, Jeremy Matson, and the Order of No Quarter. Joe actually plays his games, Champ Pity, Video Game Art Collector, because video games are art, Justin Chichio, Strand Type Game, Chris Shipley, what a horrible night to have living in bits, Nick the Video Game Database Morgan, Off the Map, NZ Collector, the primary guy who collects Korean releases, Peaceful Games, Dungeon Master, Reed Stubenik, the promoter, Retro RPG Podcast, Say Fuzzy Pickles for Shannon Willis, Sean, the Video Game Illuminati LaCroix, hello, Sean Razine, Saventorian, he knows all 97 Nintendo games, 32 bits or less, do the math, Andrew, actually collecting N-Gage O, the unusually rare Andy Hagens, Ben Parker, a bad enough dude to rescue the president, Chesno, all your base are belong to him, Colby, he is Sinistar, Corhagen does what Nintendo don't, Danny McArdle, who thought this was the Retronauts Patreon, the Modern Database, Danny Gomez, the Philatelist, Dork Overlord, the official biggest PlayStation fan, Game-Rave.com, Rip and Tear, Jackson Keebler, He Is 8-Bit, John Brown, Joseph Rogers got 50,000 on Double Dragon, Collector of Everything, including Atari, Kalen McAteer, Video Game Console Modding Guy, MP3, Homebrew Mastermind Divertov, Sam, Sega Mark III, Marks, and Hedgemon of the Geek Empire, Valdor the Great, 3.5. Thank you guys so much.